Okay, we are live.
Welcome to the City of Saratoga Springs Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. I'm going to read a brief statement to begin with. I, Troy Cunningham, Planning Commission Chair, hereby determine that conducting the Planning Commission meeting at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, and the County Health Department have all recognized a global pandemic exists related to the new strain of coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19. Due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. This written declaration expires 30 days from the date signed Troy Cunningham, Saratoga Springs Planning Commission Chair, dated April 15th, 2021. I've asked Commissioner Bryce Anderson to lead us in the pledge, so I'll go ahead and turn that over to him.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Well, roll call. I believe everyone's here except for Commissioner Wagstaff.
I'm here.
Oh, Commissioner Wagstaff is here, so we're all here. Thank you. The first item that we have is a business item. It's Markham Dental Site Plan Extension located at 2114 North Hillcrest. Kevin Markham, applicant, and Planning Director Stroud will present that to us. Go ahead, Director Stroud.
Is the presentation visible?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. Okay, all right, Planning Commission. This is a request for the Markham Dental Site Plan. Let me turn my video on. Apologize for that. There we go. Markham Dental Site Plan was approved 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago, 2113 North Hillcrest Road. It was a site plan you can see here identified at the property in blue in the regional commercial zone, encompassing 1.49 acres. Just to briefly go through for the benefit of anybody in the public and those watching. 2 buildings were proposed. Approval was given for the first building, associated parking, landscaping, that sort of thing. Access points provided there on Hillcrest, back of the building fronting out to Redwood Road. Site basic landscape plan you see here, provided the numbers there over in the column. Nothing has changed from 2 years ago. These are the same drawings that you did look at that time. Just some standards that they would follow. The building elevations, as you see here, again, nothing has changed. They're just due to, I'm sure, what's happened over the last year and that sort of thing. They are looking to, they were, construction of the site was on hold. And so by code, they can come to the Planning Commission. You as the land use authority can grant a site plan extension. So looking back over the last 2 years, nothing in the code has changed that would affect the site. Everything still is up to code as you have approved. So it's a simply request to say we need another 2 years to get the site plan going, building permit, building plans going. They are actually in the process to subdivide that lot into 2 lots to help out their financing of the project. What they're requesting for that will come back to you as well, because it is taking 1 lot into 2 lots, but they can certainly move forward with the site plan as approved right now. The recommended motion on the screen again would be a recommendation of approval from staff with the standard findings and conditions you see there. And of course, you do have the option to continue or deny the request.
Okay, thanks, Director Stroud. Do we have any questions or comments from the Planning Commission in regards to this item?
I do have a couple questions, maybe of clarification. That's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
The basement is intended for storage, it says, correct? And let me know if I'm asking a question that's outside the scope of the planning commission. Is there a limitation on what type of storage? Is that already addressed in the code?
It's just a matter of obviously storage for their business needs. It's not like a storage warehouse for anybody to come use. You know, obviously their business needs things. I suspect they'll put their HVAC equipment down there as well, that sort of thing. But it wouldn't be, you know, daily access for patients, that sort of thing.
Okay, so I'm assuming that any storage that would have any potential hazards, fire hazards, and so forth would be addressed by the building code. Is that right?
Right. Correct. That'll come a time of doing the full plan review by the building department and the fire marshal.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Do we have an
Can you guys hear me still?
Yes, we have a representative here with the applicant. I know I sent it out to Ken Berg. I do not see Ken's name as a participant.
I'm here, David.
Oh, there you go, Ken. Okay, great. The applicant is here, and so Chair Cunningham, apologize for interrupting you there. Go ahead.
I was losing connection, I think. Mr. Berg, did you have anything you would like to add to the presentation?
No, I think David did a great job of explaining what our request is. I think the market is now ready for my clients to move forward. They're excited to build this building and create their presence there in the city.
Okay. If there's no other questions from the Planning Commission, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
This is Commissioner Ryan. I move to approve the proposed site plan extension of Markham Dental at 2114 North Hill Crest Road in the RC zone with findings and conditions dated in the staff report, April 22nd, 2021.
I have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second from Commissioner McConkey. Do we have any question on the motion? Okay, we'll go ahead and I'll start off voting and I'll vote aye on this. Commissioner Kilgore.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner McConkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye, thank you.
And Commissioner Wagstaff.
Aye.
So look, that passes unanimously. Go ahead and move on to the next item. Thank you, Mr. Berg, for your time. Okay, the next
Go ahead, Chair.
The next item is a public hearing. It's for the Market Street Village Plan located in northwest corner of Market Street and Redwood Road. Steve Usden is the applicant, and this will be presented by Commissioner Planning Director Stroud. Go ahead, Director Stroud.
Planning Commission, yes, this is a public hearing, so after we go through the introduction here, you'll want to open that up for any public comment. This is the Village Plan 2, which is the continuation of the Costco Community Plan. This would then build out the Costco Community Plan. We'll refer to this as Market Street Village Plan 2, located, as you can see here, in the highlighted blue area, encompasses 6.32 acres. Just to give you the side-by-side here of the zoning and the land use, fully within the planned community zone. So again, we are going through the process, the community plan and village plan process, with this step being the village plan, to fine tune some of those requirements and standards for that site in particular. This would be the concept plan, basically in the lotting plan. So the plan is to divide that up into 7 lots. You can see from the chart there, it gives the acreages, the minimum open space or landscaping within the regional retail is 11 to 14%, and they will meet that. It gives maximum building square footages and the ERU allocations for those lots. Kind of just a bird's eye view of what the landscaping will look like overall. Obviously, there'll be finer details as each site comes in with more specifics, but basically where you see green will be landscaping. We'll have the landscape corridor there along Redwood Road as well. as well as some project corner landscaping improvements, which would be required by the district area plan. This would be the pedestrian plan and bicycle routes that would connect the properties. Obviously, we'd like to see and require that, you know, pedestrians have easy access to the various pads on the property and traveling through the property. And you can see that they're identified by the blue pedestrian routes. We have the master sign plan. Typically, sign packages, master sign plans come in at the village plan level. And so these are the typical signs that they will see around the project. Building signs obviously will be permitted as well. And those will follow Title 19 unless approved otherwise. We've got 3 known users at this point. It would be the Olive Garden restaurant, and that would be back on the southeast corner of the property. A Dutch Brothers Coffee, and there are a few call outs still for some corrections there, and an Apollo Burger. So just to point out, going back to the Olive Garden, now obviously when a village plan comes in, the whole purpose of a village plan is you're kind of requesting something that is not Title 19. You're establishing your own development standards for a particular piece of property. So I just want to point out right now the Olive Garden are currently showing 4 signs. By Title 19, they'd be allowed 3 signs, with 1 being primary, 2 being secondary. The secondary signs would be 50% of the primary. Now, if you choose to approve the elevation such as this, that's great. Then they have those signs for their approval, or recommend approval, excuse me, goes on to the city council. The only issue we run into is that if another user comes in on an adjacent pad, for instance, where their elevations are not contained within the village plan, they have to go by the Title 19 for the wall signs, because again, their elevations are not approved as part of the development package here. And so that's up to, you know, up to your discussion. It certainly makes administration of the code easier when everybody's held to the same standard when it comes to signs, as opposed to, you know, first one in, hey, we get what we've requested, but whoever comes in after that would have to then follow Title 19, because that's the way the code is written for the community plan. And unless there's a sign package, again, because you can do that in the village plan, they can make this request, and they have done so. Obviously it looks great. I mean, there's nothing against the elevations that they're proposing. It looks like a very nice building, but just to point out the issues we then do run into for future users when those pads do come in. There are a few changes still left on the Dutch Brothers. Our code doesn't allow exposed drain pipes. Those would have to be internal to the project. And then the Apollo Burger would be the same issue with the signs. Those graphics do still constitute signage. But again, if you see that it's acceptable and that you want to approve it or recommend approval as such, that's then your decision to do that and forward that onto the city council. So basically, we're establishing the standards here for build out of the Costco community plan via Market Street Village Plan 2. And the options, or the recommended positive recommendation, would be to send that on to the city council with the findings and conditions. And again, of course, you have the option to continue or deny. I will go on pause. Gordon Miner, the city engineer, has given me a phone call.
Okay. So this is is the applicant with us this evening?
Hi there, this is Alex Hughes, Dan. Stephen couldn't make it. I believe we've got our engineer and land planner on as well.
Yes, would you like to add anything to the presentation at this time?
And I'll let Nick jump in, but again, I think Mr. Stroud did a great job of sort of walking everyone through the plan here, the village plan. And again, we're excited to work with Saratoga Springs, and we're excited to move forward with the development.
Okay. In that case, what we'll do then is, this is a public hearing, so I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. And Director Stroud, are you still on the phone? Are you able to? Have you received any public comment?
Okay, there we go. As far as this project, no.
Okay.
And Gordon needs the link, so I'm sending Gordon the link for the meeting here, but I have not received any comment on this one.
All right, and I have not received any. Has Anyone else on the planning commission or anyone in attendance in the meeting received any public comment that we need to share at this time for this item? Okay, seems how we have no public comment for this item, go ahead and close the public comment, and then I'll open up for the planning commission to make comment. Ken, would you like to go first, or is there anyone else who would like to go?
Either way.
Okay, I'll let you go then.
Oh, okay. My iPad just froze. Oh, there we go. I was wondering, I don't remember the history of this. So one of the, I don't know if it's a request or if it's already a done thing. So for the zone, again, I'm going to call it a request. Why no car washes and auto repairs? I guess those were conditional one time, but we don't want to have those in this this village plan. I was wondering, is that a done thing, or is that something that's being requested, or?
No, when word got out, obviously, when developers are looking at property, hey, we like to buy this property, this is what we'd like to do. Quick Quack wanted to build another location here. It's like 3,000 feet away from the other location. Word got around that, and we discussed as staff that that's probably not obviously the uses we'd like to see there. Along with auto repair, we'd like to keep it more towards a retail environment, and so we expressed that concern to the applicant that we would probably recommend that be included in the village plan as it goes through the process. And they did put that in the village plan. Now, the city council obviously has the right to, even at the village plan level, even though the community plan says that you can't, or you're following the regional commercial zone, the city council still has the legislative authority, even at village plan level, to restrict uses, even though this community plan may say, well, gosh, all the regional commercial uses are fine. And so that has now been put into the language that there will not be any kind of car wash facility or any auto repair.
Okay, and that's just to confirm and get it on the record, so that's legal, right? I mean, as far as the city asking a private developer to put into their plan to restrict other businesses from entering that zone, even though the city zone says it's okay.
Right, because like I said, the code allows the city council to make that legislative discretion decision at village plan level. They can further restrict uses.
Okay.
This is this type of zoning is somewhat unique, obviously, where standards are established through the village plan and the community plan.
Right. Okay. And then we had some complies with conditions, can complies, things like that. The particularly complies with conditions, is that because this is a village plan and we'll get more detail later, or?
Yeah, obviously, like for instance, you look at, say where Olive Garden is proposing to go. We don't have the full blown landscape plan. Obviously, we don't have the total plant count for the lot. But so it's just, again, we're getting finer detail as far as the standards go at this level, and going from there.
Okay. All right, and then in Exhibit 2, let's see, it's page 10. Oh yeah, okay. I wonder how different is the village plan pedestrian walkway specs from the 19 Title 19.09 off-street parking requirements. Is it a big difference?
No, it's not. It's just this is one of the elements that you need to have within a village plan to show that you have a walkable area. And so it'll meet the standards. For instance, Market Street's a public street, and so we already have the established standards for the street classification of Market.
Right.
And so it's just identifying, hey, this is where pedestrians can travel.
Okay. Okay. And then I gotta come out of this exhibit here. Exhibit 3. Oh, I'm just wondering if the applicant anticipates any problems with signs meeting the Title 19 requirements.
I don't see that as being an issue. If it's the requirements, we can go back to the building, the different users, and provide them what your guys' recommendations are.
Yeah, because I'm, just David brought this up as far as, one of the things we probably need to do here is give some guidance as far as whether we want to standardize everything or if we want it to be first come, first serve. My personal preference is standardized. That way we're not playing favoritism to anybody. But that's my particular preference. And then I guess maybe we'll have everyone else weigh in, or I'm not sure how to proceed with that.
I think that's a good idea. I think everybody should weigh in on what their feelings are on doing the Title 19 universal or let the first come, first serve.
Right. And okay. And the thing is, I don't think it has to be Title 19. I know that we have, there's a lot of legislative leeway in this zone. So, we could go that way as well. But again, I'd like it to be standardized so that it's not playing any kind of favoritism to anybody, or one tenant sets the standard for everybody else. That it's just I don't know. It just seems like it's fairer if a standard is set before that, and then whether it's the village plan or just following Title 19. So that's my personal preference. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Kilgore. Do we have, why don't I just go through and I'll start with Commissioner Wagstaff. Go ahead, and if you have any comments about the village plan in general, make those, and then let us know what your feelings are as far as the Title 19 sign goes.
So on the first point, I don't have anything to add on the signs. I do think we need to just set a standard so that there's no guessing when applicants come in and they just know exactly what it is.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Wagstaff. Commissioner Ryan, I'll let you go next.
I appreciate what we've looked at here in the packet. Appreciate the discussion so far. I don't have anything to add in that regard, and my sentiments are exactly the same as Commissioner Wagstaff and Commissioner Kilgore. I would rather see us have a standard by which we abide versus a first come, first serve, or favoritism, or whatever we'd like to call it. So I am more in favor of standardization.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner McConkey, do you have any comments, or?
Yeah, probably one of my main concerns and questions I had was about the signage, just noticing how much signage there was. Is it possible to clarify what Title 19 states? Again, I know that you mentioned that earlier. Can you restate that?
As far as wall signs go, a single building, again, let's take Olive Garden, for instance. You can have three total wall signs. One of those is identified as a primary sign. That would be 8% of the facade, the elevation of where the sign is going. Then you can have two secondary signs, which would need to be in different elevations. And those would each be 50% square footage of the primary sign. And so that's standard pretty much across the board for your commercial buildings for what we deem to be a wall sign.
Okay, does this also cover monument signs as well?
No, the monument signs are different package there, and they've got that master sign plan. That's kind of the intent, though, of the village plan. You have these, various wayfinding identification signs. As staff, we don't have any concerns with those types of signs. So obviously those signs are up to be used by any of the tenants in the project, and of course we want the visibility for those tenants for customers driving by. And so our only concern was just really how we're going to administer the wall signs.
Okay. So my personal question well, before I say that, is certainly my feelings is that too much signage can distract from the whole feel and facade. Can become too busy, too distracting, and so forth. So I think there's certainly a sweet spot in providing the businesses adequate advertising and public awareness. The number of monument signs, in my opinion, is a little excessive for this area. It's just my personal feelings. I would like to know how the other commissioners, what their thoughts are about that as well. That's my only item regarding the proposed plan there. As far as the Title 19, I am in full agreement. I think sticking to what the ordinance reads and I think is a fantastic idea. So, but I'd like to know what the other commissioners feel, or if the planning commission has much say at this point, or if everything is in compliance with city code.
Yeah, if I could just, jump in there. One thing you can consider as well, obviously, if you see what was displayed there on the screen now, taken in a whole as the number, and it probably, after your comments, probably need to specify more in the village plan here, or, as part of your recommendation that, is this the extent of all the monument signs, or they anticipate the buildings coming in with their own individual sign? At that point, I would think that would be visual clutter at that point. But if you take the number of signs you see on the screen there, you've got 7 signs, but you also have 7 building pads as well. So as far as being a monument sign, if this were just a standard, regional commercial zone development, you'd have 7 monument signs anyway coming in. Granted that, some of these may be a little larger than most signs. Sign A, for instance, most likely, and C, the other ones are probably right in line with as far as square footage and height goes. And so what they're requesting as far as monument signs really isn't that far out of the ordinary. Perhaps, and I don't think it's written into the code now, would be that, is this the extent of all monument signs? Or say, for instance, if Olive Garden or Dutch Brothers comes in, they're going to want, we want our own monument sign out there as well. At that point, I think you're probably getting to the visual clutter at that point.
So I appreciate that. Where would I go from here as far as is it something that I can recommend as a commissioner?
Absolutely.
I mean, my personal, well, it's not personal, my thoughts are that maybe at each entrance and then one on the main Redwood Road, it would be a total of probably 4 monument signs would seem to be adequate, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that's being more restrictive than what Title 19 would allow if this was just a regional commercial.
Okay.
But when it comes to the end of the item here, if you're the one that makes the motion, you can make your motion and put in any sort of recommendation you want, see how that motion goes. And then if it has the majority, then that's then passed on to the city council with whatever motion in addition you'd like to see.
Okay. I'd love to get some input from the other commissioners before I even attempt to think about making a motion on this. I'd love to hear some other opinions. If anyone would like to share their opinion, I'd love to hear it.
I'll go next since I haven't shared yet. Regarding the first part, I don't have any comments, any questions, anything like that. The standardized sign for that, absolutely, I'm 100% for that. And then I do feel like the monument signs are a little excessive. I get the area right there, like it's big, but it's not that big I think to warrant that many monument signs. But again, in my opinion, just like you, Commissioner McConkey, I feel like it's a lot, but it sounds like it's standard. And so it might not be when it comes down to it. I don't know what we would do about that, but it seems a little excessive to me, but people probably know more how it's supposed to look and how it's supposed to go than me. But anyway, standardize for sure. And then I do feel like it's a little excessive, but it's fine. That's my opinion. So
this is
thanks.
This Commissioner Ryan, if I could add a thought to it. So I agree. It's interesting. I feel like it's a lot, but then I think in the same breath, in one breath, we're saying we don't want to rule for an exception. And then the second breath, we're saying, well, maybe we should be more restrictive than our own code. So I think we have to be very, very,
Right.
because we're saying, oh no, we don't want it here, but maybe we should exercise our will and do it here. So maybe the bigger picture is we need to revisit, if possible, a bigger picture discussion about what is or is not allowed versus the code. I'd be hesitant at this point to say if it's allowed now that, you know, we've decided that this exception was okay, but another exception is not. So
Agreed.
that would be my only concern at this point. But that aside, I'm trying to look at that objectively, but then the opinion side of me is I agree 100%. So I just think we have to be very careful how we exercise that.
Thanks for that. David, what does the current title read? One monument sign per building? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Each building could, at a minimum, could have a monument sign. So what you see again on the screen now, there's 7. Okay, technically A is probably a pylon sign, which you know, I'm thinking I want to say that 7 acres is the minimum for a development to get a pylon sign. So they're half an acre short of having a pylon sign. So in reality, what they're requesting again isn't too far off from what Title 19 allows now. And again, this is the nature of the village plan. The developers have been, you know, they have acquiesced our request to say, hey, no car washes, no auto repair here. So I think, you know, that's great on their part. And so when we reviewed this, we look at the sign packs. The signs look great. Those pretty much signs could go there if it was regional commercial. And so we did not have any issues with the monument signs around the property.
Okay, I do like the design of the signs. I think that they're just what they need to be for this area. A follow-up question: if they follow this design in their monument signs, each monument sign contains 7 signs essentially.
You could have a tenant that could take more than one space though as well. We don't regulate who, you know, has to go on there. You may get a user that doesn't want to pay them because it's going to cost money to go on that sign, obviously. And of course the Costco sign out on the corner is probably the prime sign, but you know, I've learned in the years that, you know, there are certain businesses that say, one, I don't need to go on the sign. I've got plenty of visual, people know where I am, or I don't want to pay the money to get my name up on the sign.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. I'd still love to hear the other commissioners' opinions if they like to share.
Our concern was strictly the wall sign. And I'm looking on the screen over here. I've got the full plan. That pylon sign labeled A is 18 feet high. Typical pylon sign, it would be 20 feet.
I'm not opposed to a single pylon sign for this group of buildings. I think, I mean, certainly sounds like we've got an ordinance to look at as well, but that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McConkey. Commissioner Anderson, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah, so a couple thoughts. I really like the look and feel of the product we're bringing in. I'm grateful that we are eliminating car wash and, you know, car repair. I think that's great. Regarding the signs, these 7 signs that you have up here, Director Stroud, those brown ones underneath, so it shows Costco, and you know that's in the big red, yet white and blue. Those tenant signs below those could also be bright and shiny too, right? Like Dutch Bros could have theirs on there with all the colors showing. Or are those going to stay kind of earth tone brown with their logos on it?
Yeah, there would be some discussion. Obviously, if it's in the village plan, it gets approved as such. We do have a section in our code which talks about white backgrounds on signs. Certainly the Costco sign does that. Now, is that their corporate sign set up in color? I believe it is, but there obviously would be some discussion with that going forward.
Okay, well, and with my comrades here and saying I like the standardization of just let's stick to the code, the 3 wall signs, and don't know that we need any more monument signs if we have these 7. And I like how they stay. I like the coloring as it is, right? If we're gonna have this much signage, I like that it stays the earth tone browns and we don't have all these colors popping up filling each of those squares. But overall, I'm excited to have these companies come in. So thanks. That's all I have.
Thanks, Commissioner Anderson. So for me on this, I like the idea of having all the eateries in one place. I think that's a great concept. I have some concerns about some of the drive-throughs. We got Pad B, that's a great one. I mean, there's tons of space there. On the one that's Pad C, which I think would probably be the coffee place,
Right, that'd be.
there's a garbage. Go ahead. What was that?
Yeah, that's Dutch Brothers on Pad C.
Okay. There is an arrow that points towards the top of the screen next to a garbage surround. And I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on there. I'm kind of worried about some of the traffic flow. Sorry.
That arrow that you're actually talking about is to provide circulation around that the drive-through. If somebody wants to bail out and not go through that drive-through, that allows them to have the circulation around and not have a dead end on that north side of
Okay.
that is to provide the circulation to not get people trapped in that dead end area.
All right. So is this pretty much how it's going to come in, or is there like another phase we have to go through, like a traffic type study, flow study, or has that already happened?
They'd have, we'd have to further refine everything here. Again, you're basically, what you and the city councils will be doing is looking at this going, okay, conceptually, we like what we see. If things were a great deal from say, Pad E comes in, want to do a total redesign of the pad, different circulation, different parking, then we'd have to question whether that meets, say you do approve this and the council approves this as is drawn here. Then we'd have to look at, is that significant enough that, hey, that's got to go back for planning commission approval. How the code's written, if something varies from the village plan concept plan, if it varies enough, the site plan actually then comes to you. If it matches what's approved in the village plan, then we keep it at a staff level.
Okay. All right. My next thing here, I think we should stick to the Title 19 for the signage on the buildings. So it's equal for everyone. I see potential issues, legal issues with the city if somebody doesn't get the same signage as the first 2 or 3 guys that come in. Let's be fair to everyone. So they all have the same. As far as the monument signs go, if the village plan and the overall developer agreement that we have with these guys allows them to have those signs, I don't think I'm going to say, no, you can't have them. I think they should, if they're allowed them, they should have them. So I'm okay with the number of signs, the way they are. Any other comments from the commission before I open this up for a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in since Commissioner McConkey asked. As far as the monument signs go, same thing as what Commissioner Cunningham just said. If it's allowed, then it's allowed. I'm looking at where the monument signs are placed, and I'm trying to think. I'm trying to imagine myself as a driver in a 3-dimensional space, looking at a 2-dimensional picture. And I'm just thinking the monument signs pretty much are in places where I want them to be, and trying to figure out how to get to or what is in the 7 different stores that are here. And so I think that it does look, maybe with the scale of the pictures here, somewhat cluttered, but I think if you're a driver, excuse me, you'd want to have the signs right in the entrances or like in the major corners where there's a major, on Redwood Road, before you come in. And so I think that pretty much as far as providing the driver with some direction as to where these stores are. I think it pretty much aligns with that. If you removed any of them, again, either the major road loses the direction, or an entrance into the plot loses some direction. So I guess it's just I'm just thinking that it seems to make logical sense that we have these, and plus the code allows one sign for every building. So I think it's fine, and I agree with going with Title 19. I think standardization is what I think is important, and Title 19 does it for us. So that's it.
Thanks, Commissioner Kilgore. Does anyone else would like to make any additional comments before we open this up for a motion?
Chair, just to clarify, did you call a public hearing?
Yes, and I closed it. Yes.
Great.
If I can pipe in just a quick second, I appreciate everyone's opinions. And I'm getting this thought that this type of a setup is what it's going to do is it's going to create a higher demand and a higher need for us to bring more eating places into the city. I'm just imagining that this is going to be a hot development here as soon as we get some of those in, and traffic could in fact, I fully anticipate traffic might be a bit congested during dinner and lunch, but I think at this point where we're trying to establish and create this whole area, the whole development, I think it's going to help the city and attract more so that we can accommodate more, if that makes sense. So I overall, I like the design of this. Whoever designed this, I think, did a fantastic job trying to achieve the traffic flow. But I think that this is the first development that I hope is going to encourage even more.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion at this time.
I'll do it. I move to recommend approval of Market Street Village Plan 2 with findings and conditions below.
I'll second it.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wagstaff and a second from Commissioner Barton. I'll go ahead and go through, and I'll start with Commissioner Wagstaff.
Aye.
Oh,
Commissioner Ryan.
do we need any conditions as far as the sign? Oh, I guess. Never
Oh, we
mind.
need, yes, that's correct.
Well, it does.
We need
I
to
guess
add,
I guess number 2 condition does say
okay.
comply with Title 19.
So yeah, that's covered.
Yep. Sorry.
Did David Stroud had his hand raised? Do we need to get input from him or finish the voting?
Yeah, I was just gonna, and I don't know if we're violating Robert's rules of order here. I just wanted clarification on there are items discussed as far as the wall signs and monument signs. If there's anything you wanted to add forward on as a condition on any of the monument signs, that what's shown there is the extent of monument signs. There was some discussion on that.
Do we need to state anything about the monument signs being limited to what's shown there?
We have a motion and a second, so I'd have to go back to the one that made the motion if they want to, Conrad, if you can jump in if they need to.
Do you want to amend
what the legal way to do this is?
Well, right now we have a motion that basically is saying that we want to comply with Title 19, but we didn't do anything as far as the monument signs.
Correct.
So right now, if it stands the way we are right now, from my understanding, we're not going to change the monument signs, correct?
I have no intention of making a motion to change to
Okay.
stray from the ordinance. I'm grateful for everyone's opinion.
But what we do want is, do we want them to be able to have their own monument sign in addition to the 7 that are already out there? Or do the 7 that are already out there constitute their one that they get? Is that correct? Did I understand that right? So I submit that we want, now this is my opinion. I say we do the motion again with the condition that the 7 currently constituted monument signs are the only monument signs in addition to the wall signs that they're getting.
Yeah, this is Conrad. I think with the confusion, I think you need to start over again so that the record's clear.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to start over with a motion.
All right. I move.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wagstaff. Go ahead.
Recommend approval of Market Street Village Plan 2 with the findings and conditions below, as well as the clarification that the current monument signs in the packet will be the extent of all the monument signs on the property.
I second that one.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Wagstaff and a second from Commissioner Anderson. I'll start with Commissioner Wagstaff.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye, thank you.
Commissioner McConkey,
Aye.
Commissioner Barton,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Kilgore,
Aye.
and Commissioner Cunningham, aye. All right, so the motion passes unanimously. We now move on to item number 5, which is a public hearing for the North Shore Neighborhood Plan, Major Plan. We start over. Number 5, public hearing, North Shore Neighborhood Plan Major Amendment located at 550 North Shore Drive. Chriselle Travis, DR Horton applicant. And this is going to be presented by Sarah.
Okay. Can you see the presentation? Okay, great.
Yes, I can see.
So this is the area for North Shore Neighborhood Plan. And they are proposing, so this is in the report, this is just a quick outline of the things that are being proposed to change. So they have 2 church sites and they're proposing to remove one because the church isn't going to buy that. And so they would like to replace that with 38 units and a 1-acre park. So you can see this area here is the park, and then they've reconfigured this area that had the church and these townhome units and these single family homes up here. So what you're seeing here are single family homes, townhomes, and then more single family homes and townhomes in this area. And they added a new product. So you can see that the old configuration, these lots would have been accessing onto North Shore Drive. And so what they did is they added a rear load product, single family product. So then the driveways wouldn't be on North Shore Drive anymore. So North Shore Drive runs through the whole project, and this is the only section that had driveways on that road. So this helps with that. Not that they had to do that, but it's something that they chose to do in this redesign. And then these would be rear-loaded townhomes, and then these cottage lots would be front-loaded, and same with the townhomes that you're seeing here. And so let me go. These are the proposed rear-loaded cottage lot homes. So something like this, you see some of these in Legacy Farms, and so they would be proposing some of that product in here. This is the proposed park that they're showing. So it's 1 acre, it's got a community marker, a concrete walkway, and then a fire pit with some seating and a raised wall around that, and then a pavilion with a kitchen and grills and a prep station. So those are the changes, and whatever you choose is just fine. There's a motion for approval, and then there's alternative motions as well.
Is the applicant with us?
Yes.
Would you like to make any comments, Mrs. Travis?
I think Sarah did a great job. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and have you guys consider that. It was unfortunate that the church didn't purchase with all the changes that are going on. It's unclear as to whether or not they needed an additional site out there. But just as a side note, they have approached us to go into another phase. So we'll be back if they actually come with a contract. So while they won't be here, there is a possibility that they may be in another phase. Other than that, if you've got any questions for us, I'm happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up for public comment. And Sarah, did you receive any public comments for this?
I did, but since there's 2 church sites, the comments I received thought they were taking out the one that's already platted and recorded and owned by the church. And once they realized it was this site, they weren't concerned anymore.
Okay. Director Stroud, did you receive any public comment for this?
I have not.
Okay. I haven't received anything, so at this time, we'll go ahead and close public comment. And I'll open this up to the commission for comments. Anyone have comments that they'd like to share?
I just want to ask,
Commissioner
yeah, I just
go
want to
ahead.
ask, Griselle, how many amendments are you guys going to have in this development?
Well, it is a large amendment. And change happens, and I apologize for that. But hopefully, we won't have many more. This is the only one where we are asking for additional density. So hopefully, it's not too much, and that the compromises we've offered have helped with that.
Well, I think it's terrific that you reconfigured with that different product and took the driveways off the North Shore Road. I think that's just terrific that you guys did that. It just looks cleaner and and takes traffic off that that road. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I was going to say that same thing. Thanks, Commissioner Kilgore. You always say what we want to say, but yeah, I was super impressed by the changes that were made. I mean, I know it. I'm sure it wasn't. I mean, once the church backed out, it's kind of a little bit difficult to come up with something. But I really like the changes. Like Commissioner Kilgore was saying, the way you put the garages in the 1 acre park, it looks really great. So again, I appreciate that as well.
Any other comments?
I have a question that probably has nothing to do with the voting here on this particular one, but with as many units, I mean, we're only adding 18 more, and so I don't have a huge concern with that. But I am curious to know if there's any news or what the latest status is on anticipating all the new cars coming and new traffic, both on Redwood and Pioneer Crossing. Is there anything in the works with the state?
Yeah, I think Gordon, are you on? I think Gordon can help with this question. So we do have, and I can go to our city map as well. So we do have Pioneer Crossing that's going to be extended, and part of North Shore includes a section of that extension. And I think that will help with the traffic in this area. Let me go to our overall map, and then I think Gordon can probably help answer questions on the timing.
Just to clarify, it's not Pioneer Crossing, it's Pony Express that extends through North Shore.
Right.
That was my mistake. Sorry. Thanks for catching that.
So let me make sure I understand your question. You're just asking about what we're doing generally to deal with the additional traffic?
Yes, that's my question. What?
So in this area, the Mountain Association of Governments has been studying this east-west general, regional movement of traffic from east to west. And that study is not finished. It's highly likely that Pioneer Crossing, that additional capacity will be added to Pioneer Crossing. As far as we're concerned, here in the city, our plans for Pony Express are adequate for the units that are planned in this area. And when I say this area, I'm talking about essentially east of Redwood Road. So that includes the Wander development. And then Saratoga Road, the north-south section of Saratoga Road, which is common with Lehigh's 2300 West. That's already planned, and we have enough right-of-way for a minor arterial there, meaning 2 lanes in each direction plus a center turn lane. And so, you know, those 3 corridors, those 3 facilities are adequate to deal with the traffic east of Redwood Road for the generated from the development east of Redwood Road. Does that answer your question?
That does answer my question, and it takes my thoughts back to the master plan. One of the comments is made in the master plan for Saratoga Springs, especially this area, is to encourage people to walk more and drive less to work and to shop and so forth. And it almost seems that we're setting ourselves up to really need to foster that working side and providing some opportunities for people to get jobs close by to minimize that traffic leaving Saratoga Springs.
Well, that's a big, so we're moving out of the engineering realm and into the economic development realm, and others can speak to that. But what you'll hear from the others is that that's a major priority of the council, to generate jobs within the community.
Hey, I appreciate that. That's all I got. Thanks.
And any other comments from the commission?
I just had a quick question on that map. Do we have access to that map that shows the future uses? Because when I put in, yes, that one.
If you don't, we can send you a link. So
I just typed it in exactly how you had it, and I tried to use my username and password for the city, and it didn't work. So anyway,
okay, just cancel so that you're not putting in a username and password, and you'll still be able to see most of the layers. There's some that we protect that you wouldn't be able to see, just the water mostly, but you'll be able to see. So if you just cancel and don't have a password, you'll be able to see most of this, I believe. If not, if you don't mind just messaging Dave, and he can let you know if you're allowed to have access or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Wagstaff. Do we have any other comments? If not, I'm ready for I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning Commission forward a recommendation for approval to the City Council for the North Shore Neighborhood Plan Amendment with the findings and conditions in the staff in the city's staff packet.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Kilgore and a second from Commissioner Barton. Do we have a question on the motion? Okay, I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Ryan.
Aye, thank you.
Commissioner Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Aye.
Commissioner McConkey. Commissioner McConkey, did you vote? Sorry, I didn't hear.
Aye.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Aye.
And Commissioner Cunningham, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, on to item number 6, public hearing, Title 19, Code Amendments, various sections, city initiated. This is presented by Director David Stroud.
Hey, Sarah, if you want to drop your screen there. All right. Planning Commission, we've got, again, you know, bring several changes to you as cleanup items. This is one of them. We got quite a few here. It's not very, may look like a lot, but probably really isn't. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. So it is a public hearing. These are recommendations that you will make to the to the city council. Various changes to Title 19. Chair, how would you like to do this? Would you just let me scroll through the pages, and if somebody has some questions on that, we can pull the questions up. How would you like to proceed?
I'm wondering if we could do like a little bit of an overview first, and then open for, because we need to do public comment, and then go back in and do the items more in depth.
We're adding some uses. For instance, you can see on the screen now, exhibition center, equipment sales. So we've got various uses we're adding. We'll then put those into the land use table as well. We are taking out a lot of the conditional use permit language. Of course, since the conditional use permits are now eliminated, we will now take out the language to that. There are several sections that you'll see in your report that show up in blue. Those are actually already in the code. They're just being relocated to a different section. When we had the conditional use chapter, we had actually various uses in the conditional use section that had their own uses. We're now moving those over into a different section for basically any use that has its own standards. We will then include those together. Excuse me. There are also some parking changes that go along with those uses. And, just again, land development code's not static. There are always changes that are needed, clarifications that need to be made. And so that's what we are doing with this group of changes here. We are adding, or we do have an option for the family definition, just to point that out. With the recent changes from the state legislature, we now have to amend our definition of family. We cannot limit it basically to a number. I do believe we have 20, but that's a lot of people. And so we had to amend our definition, and to go along with that in the future as well, we'll also be bringing back an accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Again, by the state legislature, we were mandated that we have to open up the majority of our city, the residential areas, to accessory dwelling use. So with that, if you want to go through, again, I can scroll through here. If something catches somebody's eye, we can stop and discuss. Again, Sarah and excuse me, and Rachel were instrumental in bringing this forward as well. So if they have any comments, they will jump in. Looks like Sarah turned on here, so if she has anything to say, she can jump in right now.
I'd like to, on the single family definition, just point out that we have two options here. So our state code does require that we change our definition and take out any references to whether or not people are related. We can have a limit in our code. So one of our options has a limit of 20. We put it pretty high just to take in all the different scenarios that might happen. And then the other option doesn't have a limit at all. And it just basically says you're operating as one household.
So when we get to that point, whoever makes the motion can, based on discussion, suggest to the city council, recommend to the city council which option you would go with, be one or two.
All right. I think this might be a good point to open up for public comment. So we allow the public comment time to get in here. And I think there was one email that was forwarded to us. Did everybody get that email?
Yeah, Larry Lindstrom, he is in the room here. I did forward his letter on to you. He was concerned that he may not be able to make the meeting, so he wanted his thoughts known. What his question or what his concern is about, and let me scroll to it here so we can get to it. I guess it was up here. Okay, yeah, at the bottom here. Warehouse heavy, warehouse light. We're getting requests. Some have been approved, some are still in the works, for office warehouse zoning along Redwood Road. From a strictly planning standpoint, Redwood Road and the traffic counts and whatnot, probably a regional commercial zone would be most appropriate. However, the council has rezoned here not too long ago a HADCO project where they rezoned it to office warehouse. Now, true, granted, a lot of office warehouse flex buildings do have a commercial element, a retail element. They've got storefronts and whatnot. Buildings, I think the trend now is to go towards that. The question is, do you want, with this proposed heavy and light and the square footage, do you want large massing of office warehouse buildings to be along major corridors? That's just kind of a planning concern we brought up. Of course, now we're bringing it to you to discuss and make your recommendation. Yeah, and obviously fair to say you could put a Walmart on Redwood Road that could be 120,000 square feet. Granted, that's also a large building. So it may be more of a discussion of the style of building. We do have a potential code amendment here as well to say that an office warehouse flex building would only be permitted in office warehouse and industrial zones. That's a point up for discussion, and so we'd like to get your feedback on that. But that would be what Mr. Lindstrom, and he can jump in here when the public hearing opens up, and he can give his thoughts and his concerns on what that proposed amendment would entail. Now, it doesn't say 30,000 right now would be the proposed maximum. You could have a campus type development where you could have multiple 30,000 square foot buildings. Just the matter of right now, the way the language is written, you'd only be able to have a maximum of 30, then you'd have to go to another building to break up that massing of buildings.
Why don't we go ahead and allow public comment at this time from Mr. Lindstrom? Is he available in the meeting?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, and the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the letter that I put together, but we have a zone that's office warehouse, but now, well, I guess the purpose of this really is trying to funnel storage buildings over to, or office warehouse buildings over to an industrial type zone. But on an office warehouse zone, we should really be able to build an office warehouse. And the 30,000 square feet is kind of arbitrary. Just a couple of reasons why I see that. I do a little bit of this, little bit of developing along here. We're doing one in Springville right now. It's got, with the lot size we have, 35,000 square foot fits perfectly. If we had a zone like this, then we'd have to build two buildings. And, by putting your building separation, we'd lose 5,000 square feet, which doesn't gain us anything. So we can have poor utilization of property when we have an arbitrary number like this. Another one, we're working with a tenant, a prospective tenant right now that wants a building that's a little over 30,000 square feet. And this is on the property that we just bought. We're on about 2,000 north on Redwood Road. This is the piece of property that we're in the process of rezoning here that you'll probably see shortly. But all of a sudden now, because they want just a little over 30,000 square feet, their building doesn't fit. Some people are concerned that, that a bigger building is ugly. But, I look at a lot of buildings. I go out and look at pretty well every site I can because I want to have the most attractive and I want to be on the cutting edge of whatever we do. But the things that make buildings unattractive isn't necessarily the size, it's more the age, it's deferred maintenance, it's poor use of exterior materials, it's lack of landscaping or improvements, it's HVAC equipment that's not hidden, it's unkept yard areas. There's a lot of things that make the building unattractive, but typically it's not a size related. If you have a building that's 35 feet high and you do maybe a 20-foot building separation, then you've got an ugly tunnel that goes back there that's 25 feet wide, 35 feet tall, and it might go back for 160 feet. The way we see it is bigger properties can handle bigger buildings. Littler properties are more conducive to little buildings. Now, this doesn't take into account the fact that anytime you build a smaller building, the cost per square foot goes up. That's something I'm concerned about, but I understand, but it typically isn't something the city's concerned with, but it is a concern of ours. So, I kind of understand what you're doing, but this arbitrary figure of 30,000 square feet can create a problem, and it's going to create a problem on and on. Anytime somebody has a site for 3 acres, or you've got a business that you really want, all of a sudden they've got to go to an industrial zone. There's a lot of national companies, a lot of people that would fit perfect in this kind of a zone, but they need more than 30,000 square feet. So I think that arbitrary number, why not 40 or 60 or 100,000 square feet? But, we just built a 100,000 square foot office warehouse in Pleasant Grove, and there's a huge demand for this. And we're seeing a lot of internet retail. We're seeing a lot of sales tax developed. We see a lot of job creation, probably at least one job per every 1,000 square feet. I mean, it's a big benefit to the city. There's a big demand for it. And we got to find jobs for all those houses that Crest's building. But I'm happy to answer any questions, but we really feel like this is really restrictive. And I mean, if we did have a number, something closer to the 60,000 range would be a lot more, but over half of the warehouses built in the United States right now are over 50,000 square feet. Any questions?
David, do you have anything you want to add?
Just the, you know, yeah, 30,000 square feet. You know, in reality, most numbers anyone throws out, you could probably say they're arbitrary. There's no golden rule for anything like that. Our concern from a planning standpoint is if we're getting these office warehouse zones along our major retail corridors, what do we want that to look like? Are we going to be happy if we have a building that comes in at 60,000 square feet? And right now, all of that could be warehouse. There could be very little retail consumer travel to that type of location. Is that something we want? That's kind of really the crux of the matter.
Okay.
I can probably add to that a little bit too. So so the 30,000 square feet, we have a building in our city that size. The unique auto body is just under 30,000 square feet. So if you're familiar with that building, it might give you a visual reference of what that looks like, and or we can share it on our map. We did also kind of in the Lehigh area that's along, I think it's Old Mill Road. So the road just west of the freeway, you'll see a lot of office warehouse type buildings, and we did measure some of those. And that number is up for discussion. It doesn't have to be 30,000 square feet, you know, however, that's just a point of discussion. It can be that number. As Dave mentioned, it does help control massing, and it does make a difference. It makes a difference in the street frontage. It also makes a difference in the types of users that can go in and how much truck traffic you get in a particular area.
Okay.
Is your public hearing still open?
Yes, go ahead.
I would just echo and mirror Larry's concerns. I think 30,000 is arbitrary, and I think that the city has other options as to how to control the architecture in these types of facilities. We do have a commercial element in North Shore that we will be bringing to you soon, and we will be asking for an office warehouse rezone through which we would need to do a development agreement. And I think that a lot of the ways, and David and Sarah can correct if I'm wrong, but most of these places that would be doing these office warehouses would have to ask for a rezone, and therefore a development agreement could be negotiated. And that would be the way that I would see best to control those things rather than an arbitrary number. I agree with Mr. Lindstrom that 30,000 is restrictive and will limit the availability and cause concerns in the market for those users that want to come in and use that product here in particularly North Shore and along Pioneer Crossing.
See, the code right now, if you recall back to when we kind of approached this a little less than a year ago or so, there was no limit to the amount that had to be retail or office. You recommended that be taken out, and that's how the council approved it. So any of these office warehouse buildings could come in strictly as basically a warehouse. And again, it gets to the fact of where do you want those? Obviously, there's a need for it. Absolutely. Sure, we'd like to have those. Our industrial in our city is pretty much going to probably be the office warehouse type uses. We will not have any kind of real industrial core like other cities have. Our zoning, the way our city's developing now, is just not set up for that. We'll be lucky to have a small industrial area if that when our city's built out. So yes, the majority of our office, warehouse, pseudo-industrial, industrial type uses are going to be located in this type of building and in the office warehouse zone. It gets down to where do you want that building to be located? And currently right now, there's no limit to the square footage that would be dedicated towards warehousing. And where's the best location? Where would you like to see that is one of the other questions.
Okay. I would like to get all the public comment. How many more items do we have below this?
This is the last item.
Okay.
Can I make one more comment, please?
Yes, go ahead. I will allow that.
I mentioned that we just built a 100,000 square foot office warehouse, and over in Pleasant Grove, we have 17 different tenants in it. They range from a baseball academy, cheerleading. Several of them are recreation related. We have a lot of people that are doing the internet retail. A lot of them will bring big packages in, make them into little packages, and send them on out. A little teeny bit of light manufacturing, but not much. But it does. But for the size it is, we generate a lot of sales tax. I mean, it's it's the way retail's going, and there's going to be more and more, not less and less of this. It's really where the demand is right now. And and they're good companies. They employ a lot of people, and it's very little problems. And we see this as it's a great opportunity for the city. It does what generates a sales tax. It employs people. We just think it's a good thing to do. As far as the percentage that goes off warehouse and office, it just varies. It varies in every unit. Some of them we have about 50% office, but the bulk of them is probably more like 10%. So, but it varies from one to another. But we still employ a lot of people and move a lot of product. Thank you.
Thanks.
Larry, what zone is that in Pleasant Grove? Is that the office warehouse zone?
I'm not sure what it was.
Okay.
I don't know if it's an industrial zone or an office warehouse zone. I'm not sure they really differentiate in Pleasant Grove. I'm not aware of any city that actually has size limits on buildings, in an office, warehouse, or industrial zone. Maybe there is somewhere, but this is the first time I've ever seen it in any place I've looked.
We did get the number from Lehigh City's code. So we, in our code comparisons, that's where we borrowed that. So we didn't use their exact definition, but that's where that came from. So we did use a comparable city. Just so everybody knows as well, the property that Larry owns is the one so adjacent to the north end of Harvest Hills that has frontage on Redwood Road. That's part of it is zoned office warehouse.
So that's on the east or west side or east side of the Redwood Road?
It's on the west side of Redwood Road.
It's on the east side of Redwood Road.
Oh, the east side.
South of Car Doctors.
Okay.
We don't want to be like Lehigh.
I know, I understand that. I'm just letting you know that other cities do have size limits. So just because it was brought up whether or not, they do or not. So
when it comes to drafting code, we usually see what other cities are doing, and it gives us an idea, obviously. And again, like Sarah said earlier, the 30,000 square foot, I don't think we're sold on that. The question is, do you want to have, that type of mass of a building that could be all warehouse? Do you want that on your major corridors?
and we did look at several cities, not just that one. That's just where we got the number from as a, kind of base point for the discussion.
Hey, Crystal, the public comment's still open. Do you want to go ahead and make that comment public?
I was gonna say, so DR Horton currently offices out of a building such as this. It is in a warehouse zone. We occupy more than 30,000 square feet, and we do have a small bit of storage. But it as Larry has pointed out, it is the trend. It is the place that lots of places want to be, because it is less expensive than your A plus and B plus class office spaces. So it's one of our concerns, not only because of the retail that Larry mentioned, but also because we prefer to be in stuff like that. So it helps with cost and controls, and it does create job possibilities within your city.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chriselle, do you know what zone you're in, your building?
We're in a warehouse zone in Draper.
Okay.
And our building is currently probably about 60,000 square feet, and we occupy more than half of it. As we've grown into the next bay and the next bay and the next bay. It's allowed us to stay in the same location as tenants move out and expand. We do have, Draper has a certain amount of, in their code, there's a certain amount that has to remain as warehouse storage to comply with their code. And on the Pleasant Grove building that Larry built, if I'm familiar with it, it is a very nice building. And Pleasant Grove did just recently in their last city council meeting pass a little bit of a code change, which now requires that a certain amount of an office warehouse has to generate sales tax revenue. It's based on the square footage rather than limiting the amount of the building size. They say that if, as you come in with uses, you have to have tax generating revenue in a certain amount of square footage.
Okay. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. However, I'm going to reserve and allow the commissioners the rights as they're making comments. If they have a quick question they'd like to ask Crystal or Larry, to go ahead, and we will open public comment so you can ask them a question for clarification. And I think we'll go ahead and open this up to the commissioners for comments. Maybe let's start with the warehouse definition first, because we need to answer the question on that. Do we want to limit to 30,000 or what do we want to do? So let's start there first. And I will give my comment on it. I think my feeling is, especially with what's happened in the past year, we've kind of accelerated more to a e-commerce type of business model. And I could foresee something that maybe has a little bit of a retail in the front and then, some sort of warehouse stuff in the back where they're processing orders and shipping them to all over the country or whatever, wherever their customers are. So I could see sort of a hybrid model. We're needing that. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but it would be nice to have our code flexible enough that we could allow these to come in. The other thing I can see with what Crystal was describing is maybe we have these big warehouses and one business takes over part of it and others move out and expand and they move and get bigger and bigger, or the business has the whole building and somehow they move on or they're no longer popular or some trends move on. And if we have a flexible code, somebody else could come in and occupy that and continue to do business. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I'll pass on to whoever would like to make comments next. Shout out or raise your hand or whatever you want to do.
I'll go.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the little coffee drive-through that came, the application that came in, a few planning commission meetings ago, where it's not that we're against the business. Of course we want those jobs, we want those tax revenues. It's just because of the geography of our city, we have to really consider where we want them. And maybe, we revisit where we rezoned office warehouse and such. But I could see in the future that the western part of the city, once Mountain View Corridor really develops, that would be a perfect place for these kinds of, very warehousey type of large buildings and such. But I just don't see that being a good thing for the future for the city to have it on Redwood Road or some of the east-west quarters, because a lot of those streets, even though there are plans for expansion, they're only going to expand so much because the houses are already there. And so I don't know. I'm just thinking, yes, those businesses are going to come. We welcome them, but again, where do we put them? And it's kind of hard now because the Mountain View quarter is not there yet, and there just isn't the development. So it's kind of hard to say where we're going to put you there. But I'm just saying that, do we really? Yeah. So Pleasant Grove has those. They're in the office warehouse zones. Great. That's exactly what we should do. But again, we have to really consider, because of the geography of our city, where they should go. And that's where I kind of lean towards what the planning, the city staff is looking at. Do we really want those warehouses on Redwood Road? Now, if they have, bright, shiny windows and they have retail look and everything like that, yeah, I could see that. We could have a large one, just like there's a Walmart, as was mentioned. Now, Walmart isn't, 5 stories or anything like that, but I just feel like that's what we have to really consider. And it's not against the type of business. It's not against any of that. It's just, where do we want to put it? Where do we want to encourage that they go in our city? So that's my thoughts on it.
Commissioner or Chair Cunningham, this is Commissioner Ryan. If I could, I think what Commissioner Kilgore is well spoken, and I would like to echo his comments. And I felt like we're talking past each other a little bit. I don't think any of us would disagree with Larry. And Larry, I apologize, I forgot your last name. So if I can call you Mr. Larry, I'll call you Mr. Larry. But I don't think any one of us disagree with your sentiments. Not any one of us disagree that certainly we want jobs, certainly we want well-respected businesses, and we want them here in our city. And then to couple that with the ultimate question is, where do we want them? And I would pose to the commission, drive down Old Mill Road, which was referenced, I believe, in Sarah's comments. Drive down that road, and you tell me what you see and how you feel driving down that road. And then drive down Lehigh Main Street and tell me what you see and what you feel driving down that road. And there's 2 very different feelings that come to mind when you drive down both of those roads. And I'm not quite sure, along with Commissioner Kilgore, that as I drive home or as I drive to my kids' sporting events or whatever they may be, that's what I want to stare at as I go through our major transportation corridors in our beautiful city. So it's not that we do not want them, but I think we have to be cognizant of the desire of our planning staff to really think through where this takes shape. Now, whether this 30,000 square foot designation gets us there, that's where I stumble a little bit on the planning staff side of things. I'm not sure this is the right answer. So whether there are additional steps that need to be taken, I am certainly open to that. I admittedly have no idea what those steps would be. This is where my inexperience comes in. But I feel like there's possible 3rd/4/5th avenues that we could start considering to help us both get to there, because our goal is the same. I think all parties here that have discussed this evening, we all have the same shared goal. It's just how we go about doing that. And whether this 30,000 square foot designation gets us there, I don't think it does, but I think there's other avenues that we could possibly consider. And that's where I fall down, because I don't have the answer to that. And that's where I'll shut up at this point. But those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Wagstaff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I have a few thoughts on it. I think there's other better ways for us to regulate these zones than with the square feet, because just that 30,000 square feet is not that big of a building, really. I like the last part of how it's written, where it talks about having a storefront appearance. So it's not just tilt up concrete. But at the same time, this is where our jobs are going to come. We're not going to get Class A office buildings in Saratoga Springs. And if we do, they're going to be pretty minimal. But we can have, like the Mill Pond Road, you have the rock climbing, the bounce house, the gymnastics, all of those type of uses will provide jobs, but we're just not going to get like Class A office that looks really pretty type of thing. But we can, without doing the 30,000 square feet, we can still have, and one thing that he mentioned too was like, we already have in place that you can't have mechanical exposed, like it has to be covered. And so we can make the appearance of these buildings look good, but not restricted all the way down to 30,000 square feet. And really, I think if they're just going to be strictly a warehouse use, they're probably not going to use that location anyways, because the real estate's going to be too expensive. If they're just looking to store goods, they're going to go out to Eagle Mountain or somewhere where it's a lot cheaper. That's my only thought.
I'd like to hear Ken's response to Commissioner Wagstaff's comments.
Can you repeat that? You broke up.
I'd
Sorry,
like
Commissioner.
Ken Young's response to Commissioner Wagstaff's comments.
Okay, I'll open up public comment and
Ken.
allow.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Sorry I didn't make my comments earlier, but I did want to just say that I agree with a lot that what Commissioner Ryan said, not to step on the toes of my planning staff, but I think there's also another perspective we need to take, and not just a planning and zoning approach, but an economic development approach. And I hope that we don't unintentionally limit economic development and jobs creation opportunities by doing this. And I think there are other ways of achieving what we want to do through the planning efforts, especially through zoning and design requirements. So just wanted to add that.
Can I say something, Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes, Commissioner McConkey, go ahead.
My head's spinning. I don't know about you guys, but my head's just spinning right now, and it's a little bit much for me to grasp. I'm having some discomfort. I'm having a tough time wrapping my brain around everything that's been discussed, but I agree with at least some or all of what's been said. One of the questions I've had is, is there just an understood definition, or do we have a clear definition of what a warehouse is? Is this warehouse just a big open space intended for storage or manufacturing? Or is that what we're trying to do?
I think that's what we're trying to do here, is define warehouse heavy and warehouse light. Is that correct?
Right now, we don't have warehouse in the code, and we get a lot of questions about warehouse and office warehouse and flex spaces that are a little bit of office and a little bit of retail and a little, and a little or a lot of warehouse. So we get a lot of questions about it. We have potential locations where we'll be getting some of the buildings that have the big bay doors, but then also have some office, or maybe don't have some office. And so we're trying to get it into our code. And the point of getting it into our code is so we know where it's going. So you see the definitions here, and then later you see in the land use table what zones we're suggesting those go into.
Okay. So warehouse in and of itself, we're creating the definition. Although I feel like it's a little bit unclear in my mind.
Can you scroll down just a little bit more, Dave? Dave, can you scroll to the next page?
Yeah, sorry, I had a comment behind me. I had to turn my head there. Yep, there we go.
Right now we don't have these in our code. We don't have at all. And so what we're trying to do is add it to our code, but we're trying to make a separation between just a big, 200,000 square foot warehouse that's got trucks coming and going, to something that you see in office warehouse, which we would want to be less intense. So it doesn't have to be the 30,000 square foot. As Ken mentioned, there's other ways for us to address it. One thing we could do tonight is get your feedback and comments and come back to you with something. Or you could, if you have specific suggestions, you could let us know what those are. So we want to get it in our code just because we're getting so many questions about it, and this was our first stab at it.
I think it's a great stab. I agree that there might be some clarification. one of the questions I look at, I rely heavily on definitions. And so, for example, in heavy warehouse, where it says means a building designed for warehouse uses, to me, I tend to want to know, what does warehouse use mean? And maybe that's a further definition of what a warehouse is, what its intended use is, and at what point is it a warehouse, and at what point is it say a manufacturing facility or something like that. I think that would be helpful. I think that this needs some further discussion.
Yeah, well, what we could do is, anything referencing, office, the warehouse, heavy warehouse light, we can, based on what your motion is, we can come back to you with that, and we can go through the rest of this. If there's anything else to discuss, and at least forward a portion of this on to the city council while we work on the other sections that you deem you want to have come back to you.
Okay.
I'm going to interrupt here. Mr. Lindstrom would like to make a comment, so I'll go ahead and open public comment. Mr. Lindstrom, you can make your comment.
Okay, thanks. You're just looking for a definition of here, but when we do the office warehouse, it's, it seems to me like warehouse is actually kind of a smaller portion of it. Is what this really is appealing to is the entrepreneurial people. Typically, we'll start units out as little as 2,000 square feet, and then may go all the way up to 10 or 20,000 square feet. Or if we have a large tenant, it'll even be a bigger one. But it gives the entrepreneurial people a chance to have relatively inexpensive square feet, but still have an option to do retail and still have an option to test their ideas and kind of go. They're kind of like called incubator units, where they'll come in, and like Cressell said, she said that we started out with a smaller space, and we moved into the bigger and the bigger. So you get a lot of, in this type of warehouse, you get a lot of entrepreneurial people that are just moving up and kind of got their ideas, are moving in. I mean, and then they grow and develop, and they can kind of move out in more and more units as they go. So that's part of it. I mean, they all have the warehouse portion is because these type of businesses need more square footage, and they can't pay a lot, so they can't pay a retail price for square footage. So they're looking for a place to store stuff, to manufacture, do different things. But it's just a lot of entrepreneurial type people. So that's, if that helps at all. But we see in this size, under 100,000 square feet, and especially when you get multi-tenant, you don't see a lot of the big racks that are racking storage up 30 feet high and stuff. You'll see a lot of a lot of the smaller tenants that are haven't quite made it to that point yet. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's what we see a lot of in our projects.
Thank you, Mr. Lindstrom. I'll close public comment at this time. Again, before, I don't know if it was this same property or not, but we had a proposal come through for an office warehouse type of use that they wanted to, the user was a quilting company that made parts so people could quilt. And they had just expanded beyond their basement or their garage or whatever space they had. And that was and I don't know that ever went through or not, but that's the kind of user that we'd probably see, something like that.
Well, certainly one of the questions that's been raised is this where we're limited on the amount of land that we have in frontage to the main roads. Is this the best use of the city? We certainly have some warehouses, and I'm not opposed to warehouses. I mean, there's a lot of great companies that start there, expand there. There's other larger construction companies that have grown. We have some warehouses that are going on in Lehigh, just up the street, and off of Redwood Road. And so there's certainly, looking at the availability, I think the big question is what's the best use of the limited land resource that we have here that's going to benefit and create that good balance of employment and revenue, just the constant revenue. I don't know what the answer to that is, and I, to be honest, feel a little unprepared to be able to answer that question myself. It's maybe more in depth than I was anticipating, as much as I prepared for tonight. But anyway, I do have a comment on family. Are we going to go back to that one?
Yeah, we haven't got to the family yet.
Okay.
If you want to make your comment, go ahead. You can do that now.
I think we should finish the discussion around this before we jump to another one.
I agree.
Because I think I want to agree with Commissioner McConkey. Like what he said is well said. Like it's none of us are questioning the types of business that we want or the type of entrepreneurs or whoever they may be. Like I want them. I just want them in the right spot. And that's the question. The question isn't like, do we want this, right? Like, well, I'll answer that. But the question is, where does it go and what's appropriate? And I think we have to make sure we're distinguishing that, not getting muddled up with thinking, oh, well, we don't really want the quilting business. We don't want this. We don't want that. None of us are saying that. We need to be clear on that from a city's perspective. It's just, we got to get them in the right spot.
Yeah, Redwood Road for Lehigh is not the same Redwood Road for us.
100%.
That's right. That's right. And really, we're almost answering for the residents here. We're looking at what's really going to best serve the residents in the city as a whole.
Well, I appreciate what Commissioner Ryan had said because the way we're set up, our Saratoga Springs, that we will be driving past these places. In a lot of other cities, that's not how it is. They do have their own area for that kind of thing, but in Saratoga, we don't really. Like if this changes, I mean, I don't have an answer either, and I don't know if 30,000 is the right answer either, but it is different here in Saratoga because of the way we're set up. And so I think everybody made those same comments. Hey, we want this, we want these businesses, but where do we put that? We are different than other cities when it comes to where we can put things. So I just wanted to throw myself in there real quick about I agree with all that, and it's a little hard with how Saratoga's set up. Not in a bad way, just it's a different way. I love that comment about our Redwood Road is completely different than Lehigh's. That's a fantastic comment right there. That's exactly what it is.
Should we request the staff then to come up with some ideas about that? Maybe alternatives to the square footage spec. You know, I mean, because I'm a cynic. You know, if half the buildings are bigger, if half the buildings being built now are bigger than 50,000 square feet, I could also say, okay, but then half of them are smaller than 50,000 square feet. But if the general trend is they are getting bigger and the uses is changing, then we have to be cognizant of that, definitely. But again, where? I mean, Mountain View corridor, perfect, but of course it's totally undeveloped right now.
And this doesn't change anything, but I'm usually an optimist, but my mind automatically went to that as well, Commissioner Kilgore, in a little bit different light. So times are great. Times are booming right now, right? And these things are likely to fill up. But 10, 15 years, 20 years down the road, what do all these humongous spaces look like sitting with one little tenant in them? You know,
and that's going to be a lot different location-wise too, if they're sitting empty over on Mountain View corridor compared to sitting empty on Redwood Road, where we're driving past them going into our neighborhoods.
That's my point. Exactly.
Yeah.
I haven't said much. I'd like to say a comment if I could. I'd like to think of myself as an optimist, and I'd like to think that we will get Class A office space out here eventually and soon. I'm okay with an arbitrary requirement like 30,000, and maybe it isn't, maybe it's something else. But I'd like to think that we could make exceptions if and when it looks great and the location is perfect. I know that I've said that before in the past, and I kind of got my hand slapped saying, well, we don't make these arbitrary things just so we can make exceptions. But I think we always need to be able to make exceptions when the time is right and the thing is right for our community. So I'm okay with something arbitrary. And I think I align a lot with what's already been said in terms of Saratoga's unique situation. So.
You know, if the thought is that 30,000 is, and again, we took that off of Lehigh, that 30,000 is too less. You know, we have architectural standards for these types of buildings. Those are already in place. And so any issues with the architecture, yeah, that can be addressed. And so it sounds like the hang up is probably that square footage. You know, we can still forward this on tonight the door's open for you to make your recommendation. Obviously we've got ours, then we bring that to you, but then you then forward, we take your recommendation, then I forward that on to the city council. So I think you can still make a decision tonight. If you want to come to, you could say, we don't want a square footage restriction at all. Whatever you want to come up with, that as consensus with the planning commission, we'll then forward on to the city council.
Wouldn't you rather have a restriction that's more conservative that then you can make exceptions to than one that you can end up like, I'd rather err on the side of caution there, or err on the side of smaller than larger.
And we need to start somewhere. So just the effort that's being made by the staff to start, I think, in my opinion, is commendable, and we just need to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I would say, hey, come up with a recommendation. Again, the council is the approving body here. They may throw everything out the door. What we suggest, what you suggest, who knows? Again, this is a recommendation from you. You're not approving anything. You're just making the recommendation.
Okay. And I'm okay if we have to break this up as well and continue a couple of items or whatever we need to do to make it get it to go through.
Well, is it realistic to request staff to come up with kind of like what you did with the family one, where you give us option A and option B as far as how to define a office warehouse and some of these things? So some is, if you feel that other cities are still doing square footage, then that's option A. And then option B is okay, not square footage, but I don't know, whatever, something else.
And I'm okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Commissioner Kilgore.
Right, no problem.
I'm okay if we forward a split decision, right? So maybe I will forward a positive recommendation that it is 30,000, and Commissioner Barton or Commissioner Wagstaff, someone might disagree with me, and I almost want to pass that wrestle on to say, hey, we wrestled with it and we were kind of split. Good luck. If we want to bring something forward in unanimity, I don't know if that's helpful. Maybe we want to come forward with some kind of split and let them sense the wrestle we had and let them wrestle with it at the same amount. Does that make sense? I don't know if
I mean, as long as you're not talking about the whole code amendment packet, right? Because there's a lot more in this packet than just that. So we'd have to really just split that one piece out.
That's fair. So maybe we forward on the warehouse as a split, and a unanimous, or and everything else can be its separate thing.
Okay. All right. Are we good to move on to the family question? That's the other one we need to make a distinction on.
If I can just make one last comment, I think just to reiterate on as far as warehouse, I would love to see maybe the definition of or allowed uses of what a warehouse actually is, but maybe that goes without saying.
Can I add to that, Dave? So the warehouse, you're right, it's a pretty simple definition. They would also have to meet the other uses identified in the use table.
Sarah, did you get your comment out? It sounded like you got cut off.
Oh, did I get cut off? Can you hear
It
me?
sounded like it. Sorry.
So it is a pretty simple definition, as you mentioned. So in addition to being a warehouse, it would also have to meet the other use categories listed in the different zones.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to come in and use that warehouse for anything. The land use table of what uses are permitted in office warehouse, or if they're in the industrial, still has to follow those approved uses.
That makes sense.
So then maybe size doesn't matter as much if they're having to meet those uses in that zone. Okay, well, let's move on to the family, option 1 and option 2, or option 3 or 4. So when I'm looking at this, I have problems with the 20. listing a number scares me. But, could there be a family of 20 people? Maybe, if it's a yours, mine, and ours, and both of them that came together had 10 kids, or they had adopted. I don't know.
Well, and even at that point, legally, you can't split up a family. If they're blood marriage or adoption, really, I don't. And Conrad can speak. Obviously, you can't break up a family unit. There could be 30 people if they're family, related by blood. You can't say, well, 10 of you have to move out.
Okay.
That'd be a political firestorm there.
I would think there'd be a problem with 30 people. Some of them have got to be old enough to drive.
Yeah, and I think the option number here, 20 individuals, whether related or not. Yeah, so I think that the weight there goes to not being related. Again, you could have a blended family that has 22. City can't tell 2 people have to move out.
Now, I hope I didn't miss something in reading this stuff. We're not really doing a whole lot with ADUs right now, correct?
Right,
You're going to come back with.
Right. We have till, I believe the date's in October, where we have to have a code in place. And we do have some basic standards that we do have to follow in the new bill that was signed. But we do have some flexibility in that. And so we will have to have an ordinance crafted and get something in the books by October.
Okay.
This on the family definition, we have a May deadline, and on the other stuff, it's October.
So we need to kind of get something going with the family this go around, then it sounds like. Right? Is that correct?
I apologize. Can I interject with a question?
Go ahead.
What this is being driven by the latest legislation, is that correct?
Correct.
I'm not familiar with these particular bills. I'm wondering if we can have some light shed on what the legislation was.
And Conrad, are you up on that, or do you just want me to? In basically in 2 cents, the state legislature says cities, you have to allow accessory apartments in your city, and here's some minimum standards.
Like allow them anywhere, or just?
Yep.
We can exclude 25% of the residentially zoned property.
Okay.
Yeah, David, I talked to Brad about this, but just from a code enforcement standpoint. So I'm, I looked at it briefly last week. I think Kevin is probably more up to date on this than I am. I'd be more than happy to take a look at it and come back and give the commission some more information on it. But that's about the extent of my knowledge right now.
Basically, it's a mandate. We have to allow them.
Correct.
In the city prior to Beacon Point being approved, we did not allow accessory apartments anywhere. Beacon Point was a community plan that came through, and the developer requested the opportunity or the option to have ADUs in that development, and that was approved. And so that was the first location in the city that we allowed accessory apartments.
And the ADU is either attached or detached as far as the state legislation?
Yeah. The state code, I want to say, talks about an interior ADU, I believe.
Yes.
I think the city can limit having them detached potentially, but we have to allow them interior to a dwelling.
You remember what bill this was?
HB 82, I believe.
Yeah, that's it.
So is it just saying all these basement apartments that people are renting out now, it won't be against city code anymore? Is that kind of where we're headed?
Well, it's going to depend on what part of the city the council says, okay, great. This is the 25% of the city that cannot have it.
Okay.
The other 75 will. And so we haven't got into the mud on that about what our acreages are yet. We haven't met with the city council to say, where do you want to see these? I think that's going to be a big thing with the retreat that management has with city council coming up in a month or so.
Yeah, that's a huge change when it comes to parking and all that. I mean,
I limit density.
That's huge. I didn't know that was.
What I would recommend, if you guys aren't getting this, is to go on to the Utah League of Cities and Towns site. And there's a place where you can sign up with an email and request that they send you legislative updates. Because I got the legislative updates throughout this whole thing, and I kind of followed this thing through. I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but the bill that they passed was a heck of a lot better from what they originally proposed. Because what they originally proposed was you have to accept it anywhere, no restrictions, you have to take it, no matter what. And they did get them to allow us some restrictions, like the 25% of the city. That's one of the concessions that the Utah League got. There was some other things as well, other legislation that they reported on as well. So anyway, if you don't receive those updates, go ahead and sign up for them and get them so you know what's coming down the pike. And also they give you a warning, hey, write these senators or write your representatives and make sure you weigh in. And the league has a lot of influence at the state legislature. And in this case, they got them to come way down from what they were originally proposing, which was a good thing for the city. But anyway.
So Director Stroud, so is one of those, so we don't have to allow the detached kind, right? Is that part of that came back?
Without getting back into the bill, I want to say those can be prohibited, but interior have to be allowed.
They have to be allowed. Okay.
So my concern, as far as this definition, not my concern with this definition, but what I'm concerned with is allowing. I don't know if there is a way to restrict allowing a domicile to house a bunch of people who are here to, because they're okay with it, because of their financial means, so that they're working, and yet it could be a hazard. I mean, fire hazard, pest hazard, just all kinds of things like that. And I wonder if there's any way that we could try to prevent that kind of thing happening based on the definition of what a family is. Because in other cities, they have that, I mean, the opposite to the homeless situation is where they have lots of so-called relatives all living in one domicile. And it's like a 2-bedroom apartment, and they've got, 15 people living there. And again, I have no problem with what the definition of family is, or that's not where my concern is. My concern is allowing that kind of situation to happen, because it becomes a major hazard and safety, from the safety and all that as well. So I don't know if that's something that we can help prevent with this particular title.
Yeah, and just top of my head, I don't know how we could accomplish that.
Well, I had a thought, and I was looking over this over the weekend. Rather than putting a number on, which is not enforceable or extremely difficult to enforce, and is arbitrary if it could be in relation to the square footage of the home, and in that way would be potentially a greater effort in the health hazards, the fire hazards, and so forth, and just the livability circumstance, as an alternative to having the number on there.
Well, as far as the family definition goes, since we have to have this to the city council, I think as far as this goes, you'll need to make a recommendation on this tonight.
I like option 1 because it doesn't have that number in it, but.
Is housekeeping unit, is that defined well enough? I guess
that was one of my questions.
Does it mean just anybody who lives there, or is there like some kind of a definition to a housekeeping unit?
We don't have a definition, but we could go down. We could probably define housekeeping, then probably pick words out of there and try to define those even further as well. Their legal definition that would stand up if something's ever challenged. I don't know. I think you probably look at the word housekeeping, think they function as one. In this case, the term family. I think back to when I was in college. Someplace had 5 roommates. We had one kitchen. theoretically, we were probably all would fall under a single housekeeping unit. We all took care of the place, that sort of thing. We weren't individually, doing our own thing, so to speak.
Now, this is a tough thing, in my opinion. This is very difficult to define. Where just the definition of family on a global perspective is changing, and as is the lifestyle, and everything is changing so much. So I struggle with even knowing how do you define a family in regards to single family dwellings.
Yeah, this definition was vetted through Kevin Thurman. Obviously, he did obviously make the point as a draft. He obviously will, when this goes on to the city council, will have additional insight at that point. Again, as far as the definition goes, you'll have to make a recommendation on that tonight.
On first blush, I go with what Commissioner Barton was saying. Rather than have a number, if we could say a single housekeeping unit, whatever that is, I think is preferable, because you could have 20 individuals then in a 1-bedroom apartment. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have that with a single housekeeping unit, but at least we're not encouraging a certain number and say, as long as you have 19, you could all live in this little studio apartment.
I did want to address Ken's comment just a little bit. I did have a conversation with Brad, our code enforcement officer, with this particular change. If, say a house does have, I don't know, 50 people in it or something, there are some health code requirements and some building code requirements related to occupancy. So there are other ways that we can go about enforcing numbers without having to put a number in our code. So we could default back to both health code and building code as far as their occupancy numbers go.
That's good to know. That's really good to know. That alleviates some stress for me. From sounding like option 1 is my preferred option as well.
I can do a motion for that one. For just the family part of it. So I moved forward a positive recommendation.
Wait, Ken, we probably want to approve all of them except for the warehouse light, right?
Well, wait a sec. I think there's another one we may want to break out as well, and we haven't got to that yet.
Yeah, I was just okay with the family section, but go to the other one too if you want.
Well, I also have another at least a question, if we're okay with moving on.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, in the parking section, we've had some changes there. And let's see, what page is that? Page 14. And here I was wondering why we're reducing the medical parking from 5 stalls to 4 stalls. It seems like, when residents offer their opinions about parking in our city, it's always about not having enough, not that we have too much. And
if you look at those changes there, what we're looking at is, if you have a medical, we're going from 5 to 4. We have looked at that. 4 doesn't seem to be an issue. 4 is fairly standard in a lot of cities as well. The other change obviously would be then if we're going to have a building that's for office, healthcare, medical, that's 2 or more stories, you're going to get a point where it's probably going to be a substantially sized building. Anything that's like atriums, common hallways, that sort of thing, that actually doesn't drive the need to have somebody there. It's really the office, it's the care of whatever's there, that those non-leasable areas, the common areas, would not count towards parking. Take the buildings being built right now at Riverside Crossing. They're across from Smith's. Those are 2 medical buildings, 2 and 3 stories. when somebody goes for medical care, they're going there to use the office, to use the exam room. They're not there to stand in the hallway to get their services. That's just kind of a pass-through area. Those areas don't drive them to be there. And so we thought, let's get to a point where we're going to get if we're going to get a 2-story building, that, okay, let's now look at, what really generates the need for the parking, and that would be the care. And, it kind of then falls back onto the single story of using the same square footage number. But we have looked at various numbers, other cities, 4 per 1,000, as far as medical care and office is fairly standard.
Is dental included in that?
Yes, that's healthcare.
Okay, so that the application that we just considered today, the floor plan has 10 seats for patients, dental patients. And so that means potentially there could be 10 patients as well as the staff all there in that one dental clinic at one time, and we're talking about reducing parking to 4.
Well, and you look back, they're approved under the 5 per 1,000. They have not applied for any change, so that they're still under the higher standard.
Right, but going forward, then we'll have more of the same.
We could. Certainly we could.
I think because I was thinking about dental also, Ken, and what's your highest occupant load or occupancy type in the medical, and it seems dentistry is a great example. In most cases, in my mind, everyone who's receiving dental care probably is not driving their own individual cars. They're probably going to be there. Maybe some of them will be individual, some will be families, maybe a husband and wife or a mom and kid, or something like that, just looking at probabilities. And so I think there's the occupant load in that particular building. I don't remember what it was, or if it was even listed, but you look at the probability of how many cars are that many people going to be using. Probably the staff will all have their own vehicles, most likely. And then if you have 10 chairs, you might get, just guessing here, you might get 5 to 8 cars for the customers, plus maybe a few waiting potentially. But it seems that trying to hit a sweet spot between not tying too much land up in parking that's just going to be sitting vacant, but having enough parking to accommodate the probable regular use is where we want to be, in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna weigh in on this. This one bothers me tremendously. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about a building that we have in the city right now. It's 5228 Commerce Drive. It's on Redwood and Commerce. On the front of the building, it says Alpine Vision and Greenwood Dental. Here's the occupants of that building: Alpine Vision, Greenwood Dental, Premier Family Medical, Alpine Glow Dental, Utah Valley Oral Surgery, Children's Crossing Pediatric Dentistry, Saratoga Springs Orthodontics. This building right now is parked at 4 per 1,000. Okay. This building is the reason that the city went back and changed from 4 to 1,000 to 5 to 1,000. The reason for that is this building, I happen to go there for Alpine Vision and Premier Family Medical. I am a patient of both of those. In the last few years, there's been 3 occasions, 2 of them when I was trying to go to Alpine Vision, that I had to park on the street because the parking was full. Okay. Now, the scary thing about this is not all of these guys are there every week, every day. They rotate. I had to park on the street one time this past year, even with the pandemic and with because the telehealth visits. I had to park again on the street in order to visit Premier Family Medical. When Ken kind of hit this a little bit about staff, for Alpine Vision, when I go in there, I see 4 people when I first walk in that building. There are 2 receptionists and there are 2 people in the area where they sell the glasses. Okay, that's 5 people when I walk in the building. That doesn't include the 2 doctors that are there, the 2 assistants to the doctors, and the billing lady. Okay, I don't know how big their office is, but just with me walking in, I'm already over 4 to 1,000 right there, just in that office. I do know that Premier Family Medical is relocating from that place to the Riverside Crossing because they don't have enough space and the parking is not adequate for their patients and them. So they're moving. All right. I'm going to go to another building. This is 41 East, 1140 North. It's where Westlake Physical Therapy is, Crossroads Family Medical, and Utah Valley Pediatrics. This building is 95. I was able to get this because I found the meeting that this came to the Planning Commission back in January 8th, 2015. It was for Riverbed Commercial. That building is 9,596 square feet. It is parked at 5 per 1,000. In fact, they went above and beyond because for that, they only needed 48 parking spaces. They provided 58. I am a patient there at the physical therapy. I've been going there since December because of my knee replacement. The first 3 weeks was no problem because my kids dropped me off and they came and picked me up. But then I was dropped off later at that building, or I had to park, and there's been 3 instances where I've had to wait for somebody to leave so I could have a place to park. And one time I was going to be late, so I had to park on the street. And that's pretty hard because a lot of the people that live in the apartments use that street. So what the point I'm trying to get at here is Saratoga, I don't think we can compare us to Lehigh or Orem or Pleasant Grove or even Eagle Mountain. We've had some heavy uses of buildings, multi-story buildings with medical uses in them, and our parking needs are higher than those guys. To contrast this, Salt Lake's requirement, even though they have a lot more public access to public transportation, they still are requiring 5 per 1,000. That's what Salt Lake requires. Saratoga had to go back and change their code to 5 per 1,000 to take care of what happened at the Commerce Drive area. We've got to remember that we're going to have a lot of heavy medical uses with the 2 hospitals we've got coming in. And I don't want to have it, I would hate for us to change this code where it is right now and have places like Premier Medical get upset and have to move out of the buildings because they don't have enough parking, especially when we're going to have lots of potential uses coming in. I don't think Lehigh and some of these other places have the potential of what we're going to have here. So I don't think we should even mirror their code at all. I think we should look more to Salt Lake. And the reason for that is if you think about it, if you have a specialist you need to go to, you go up to Salt Lake. We're going to be that area because we're going to have the 2 big hospitals, and people are going to drive there. We're not going to necessarily go there on public transportation to see a specialist. And so we need to keep, let's not make the mistake of changing this right now. There is an opportunity for a parking deviation in our code. It's in section 19.9.5. And in section 9 of that code, I'll read it to you. Parking requirements may deviate from the standards contained in section 190910, required minimum parking. When the land use authority determines that the deviation meets the intent of the chapter, reductions may not exceed 25%. So if we have a use that comes in and decides 5 per 1,000 is too much. The interesting thing to me is why didn't Riverside Crossing, if our code was so egregious and not aligned with everybody else, why didn't they come and say, hey, we can't do the 5 per 1,000? They gladly are building 2 buildings, one 3-story and one 2-story at 5 per 1,000. If that meets it, I say, let's not change it. Anyway, some of the things that we allow the required minimum to be changed is that they're going to have to tell us the intensity of the proposed use, times of operation and use, whether the hours of operation are staggered, thereby reducing the need for full amount of required parking, whether there is shared parking agreement in accordance with section 19.510, trip generation and peak demands. So if we've got, from when I read through this, it sounds like we've got one user that's asking for a reduction. That user can come to us and ask for a deviation. I don't think we should change our code from 5 per 1,000. We're just going to have problems. We've already had problems in this city. We had to go back and change the stuff. Let's not do it. I will get off my high horse now and let someone else make a comment.
I'll make one real quick just because it goes along with exactly what you were saying. So my dentist and my medical doctor are in that same building over on Commerce Drive. And I think I have found a parking place, if I'm lucky, 30% of the time. Other than that, I'm waiting for a few minutes to see if somebody pulls out because I don't want to park on the street because there's, people going in and out, whatever. But sometimes I do have to resort parking on the street. But 70% of the time, I'm waiting for 5 to 10 minutes for somebody to pull out so I can park to go. And again, that's when my family goes for the dentist and for a medical doctor, and it's an issue. And also I visit a student at Westlake Physical Therapy. It's probably around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, usually. Never a parking place.
Yeah, that's their high time. I've noticed the same thing. But it's not just Westlake that's, I failed to mention. There's also Crossroads Family Medicine and Utah Valley Pediatrics in that building.
Again, Utah Valley Pediatrics is very popular. The doctors are well liked and well known, and so a lot of people go there. And I'm 100% in agreement with Commissioner Cunningham on this. Like it's the biggest issue in our city. One of the biggest issues in the city is parking for stuff like this. I mean, I think somebody used Voss as an example forever ago, and it's a different whatever, but it's the same thing. Like we have to make sure we have room for our residents to use the amenities that we are trying to give them.
Any other comments?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the at least taking out, atriums, common areas, things like that?
No, I'm not going to. The reason I failed to mention this in my argument was that with Westlake Physical Therapy, if they're overparked, they have 10 more parking spaces than they're required under our code, and they're filling up. I am concerned with Riverside Crossing. What I want to put in the recommendation is that we watch what happens there, and if they start getting into the same type of issues that we're having at Westlake and Crossroads Family, that we go up. We move the code up instead of down.
One additional.
So I think we should take the entire lease of everything. I don't take out atriums or common areas or anything.
The other thought I'd add is this. Stalls is interesting because we drive a lot of big vehicles in Saratoga Springs, right? Everyone drives a truck. And if they don't drive a truck, they drive a big old van because we have a lot of kids. And so that alone makes some parking, whatever, even if there is an open stall, it's sometimes sandwiched between two behemoth vehicles. So just another thought.
That's a good point, because when I got my COVID shot, I had to go all the way to West Valley. And I noticed that there were cars that were parked like over 2 stalls on purpose. And so I saw one like that. I thought, that's rude, and then I came out and I saw 3 more cars parked that way. And I don't know if it's a trend or what. And then I saw one parked like that in the Smith's parking lot here in Saratoga Springs. And I'm just wondering, I mean, I don't know if it's legal, if they could be cited for it, but if that's the trend, that because people are just trying to put space around their vehicles, it's definitely going to be a problem.
Or social distancing their car.
Yeah, it was weird, but I saw it for the first time just a couple months ago when I got my COVID shot, and now I'm just seeing it all the time. So it just might be that I'm just attuned to it now. But that's really weird. But I also want to just kind of push back a little bit on what Commissioner McConkey was saying about how, of course, not every bed or not every patient seat is going to be equivalent to a car. But even then, even if a parent is driving a kid, that kid is still in that seat, and there's still a car associated with that seat, you know. And it's very rare for people going to the dentist or for any eye doctor or whatever to carpool. And so it's just I don't know. I just feel like if they're going to have 10 seats in a 3,000 square foot building or 5,000 square foot building, then we have to consider accommodating that. I mean, not that we have all those parking spaces, but we have to think a little bit maybe on the higher side rather than on the lower side, at least today.
Well, my feeling is we leave it with the 5 per 1,000, and we still have the parking deviations that they can go for. If they can show us that they're going to be lower than that, then we have the ability to grant them a 25% reprieve. I think one of the big differences between Lehigh and Saratoga Springs, and I grew up in American Fork and Lehigh, when you went to the doctor had his own building, and it was just him in that building. It wasn't the orthodontist and the pediatric dentist and the eye doctor and everybody else in the world. And I think that's where we came into problems, because everybody's got their own receptionist, all those outfit. And anyway, medical profession is labor intensive. They just have a lot of people. I know when I go to Premier, I don't always use this, but they have an x-ray technician. They have a, what do you call them? Ultrasound person there. And they may not be there the whole time. They also have somebody that draws your blood. That's in addition to the doctor and the nurse. It's usually one nurse that intakes you, and then the doctor and another nurse comes in and talks to you about stuff. Anyway.
So is this an opportunity that we need to be looking at, thinking about increasing parking, or?
I think it's a potential that we may have to increase it. Yes. I think we should watch the Riverside Crossing. That on theirs, they were required to have 404 parking places at the 5 per 1,000, and they're providing 405. And if parking becomes an issue there, then maybe we need to revisit this again to look at moving it up. That one of the things that I learned when I was at when I did the Utah League thing, they talked about parking, and they said, what you need to do is look at the history of the city and your uses. And if your uses are using more parking, then up your parking for different things. If it's less, then take your parking down. Anyway.
So I appreciate what's been said, Chair Cunningham. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I would offer that the only counter is lack of supply. So we had Larry's orthodontist, and that's all we had in town is Larry's orthodontist. And now we're going to have Chuck, Dick, and Larry have an orthodontist here soon. And there'll be more choices and places to go. So that's in my mind, the only logical counter. So I'm not necessarily opposed to what you presented. I thought it was very well said and done. And as I think through it, that's the only other thing that I can think of is that we'll have many more choices.
One thing I'd like to say real quick too is that although I can't find parking, I'm grateful that I have all these places that I can go to in Saratoga, right? And so our people are using our people that are here. And so I love that. Like we're not as many people are going outside of Saratoga, right? They're using our doctors, they're using our dentists, everybody that comes here, and that's why parking is an issue. But parking is an issue, but that's also a good thing. That means we're shopping local, I guess you could say. So I like that. I just hate not finding parking.
I thought Commissioner Ryan's point is really good, but I do wonder though, again, unlike the old Lehigh where they're coming, where these businesses are coming in, but instead of taking a building each, they're saving money and space by being in the same building. And so again, then you have the parking issue.
Yeah, I think that's a logical counter as well to my point. And the only other thing I would say is now we don't have just the one building on Commerce. We're going to have 3 more buildings on the corner of Pioneer and Redwood. That's so you can go back and forth. I'm just saying I think I'm happy to keep it where it's at. And I love the idea of observing and watching what's happening. And there's nothing that precludes us from asking to revisit. So I'm not opposed to what's been said or what's being proposed by any means. I'm just saying, I think my fingers are crossed that maybe it naturally alleviates itself with some of our growth that's going to happen in the city.
Good point.
Okay, so do we have any other comments about the proposed code changes outside of the warehouse, the family definition, and the parking? I mean, there was other areas that, are we okay with the other changes?
And I would just pipe up on the warehouse. If you're not good with the 30,000, I would just encourage you to forward a recommendation to eliminate it, or, you know, if you have a number you're comfortable with, do that. That'd just be my thought on that.
Okay.
So can I come back to that, Director Stroud, just for a second, because I've been thinking about it a little bit more. So I appreciate your concern. Like, I think we're on the same page as far as what you were mentioning as your concern, and I don't want to speak on your behalf. So I want to understand your position better. Your position is that the 30,000 square foot I can live with on these corridors, and I can manage via other means to make it aesthetically pleasing. I feel comfortable to make it aesthetically pleasing. Is that your position?
Yeah, you know, an office warehouse building will probably always look like an office warehouse building. Yeah, you know, health, safety, and public welfare is what we're supposed to do in planning. Aesthetics, a little more tough to say we're doing it just because of aesthetics, but yet, you know, in a sense, maybe we are to a point. It's our city. It's what people are going to see when they drive through our city. If you're comfortable with that, great. We're just throwing this out for you to debate and get your take on it, and then get your recommendation onto the city council. You know, we have our perspective, you have yours, council's going to have theirs. Hopefully in the end, we're all happy, but you know, we're just here to get your perspective on that.
I appreciate the additional insight. Thanks.
So I'm just, I don't know what we're going to decide on the 30,000, but I'm just going to throw out there what Director Stroud just said. It's true. I love the sentiment where it's what people see when they come into Saratoga. And I think 30,000 really helps us keep that where, hey, this is, you know, this is our city. This is what we want people to see and feel as they come into our city. So I'm good with the 3,000. I'm just throwing that out there.
Well, and you know, if you, any great city that you go into, when you first go into the city, you are going to see warehouses. That's where the factories are, the industrial, it's all encircling on the outskirts. But when you go into the city center, then you don't see those. And that's my concern is, you know, unfortunately, but the fact is Saratoga Springs is very narrow and long. So we may not have an actual city center. It's going to be a corridor. And is that where we want to put those kinds of, you know, industrial or office warehouse buildings? I think we'd want it more to the west. Unfortunately, those businesses won't come until probably the Mountain View corridor is half built or, you know, partly built in some way. So that's really the issue. But if you think about it, any city that you go to, you know, usually the center is not where those large office warehouses are. They're on the outskirts. And I know Christensen, the city manager has told me many times, we're never going to be a Park City, you know, because I was saying, well, Park City, look at how nice they plan their city. You know, he said, well, we're never going to be a Park City. No, that's true. But remember, at one time, Park City was small. It was dying because its primary industries were depleted. And they were there was one time when the city council and the city planning staff were trying to figure out, what is this city going to be? And what are we going to sacrifice so that we could maintain some kind of an aesthetic feel, and even to the detriment to our economy, until we figure it out. And they kept the neon signs out, and they kept I'm sure they wanted the revenue, but they kept those out of the pretty parts of the city, you know. And so and it's just the same with us. I don't think it's inevitable that we're going to get huge neon signs on Redwood Road unless the state forces us to do that. So I think we can say that, yeah, there are some times where we might have to some extent, adjust our economic expectations based on what we want the aesthetics of the city to be. Because again, yeah, Park City is great now, but at one time they were dying, and they still made the choice not to accept everything, you know. And again, there's nothing wrong with those businesses. It's great. But because of the layout of our city, we have to plan for the future. We've got to.
To your point, Commissioner Kilgore, right, we're not Park City. I don't think we're trying to be. We want to be Saratoga Springs. How do we get to that point?
So where do we go from here?
I think I can probably make a motion on option 1 for the family and a motion for the parking, because I think most of us agreed on those two, at least 50%. We can at least get those two knocked out if we want.
Do we want to continue the warehouse, or do we want to send some?
So can we send the 30,000 to city council and can they discuss it and change it? I mean, how does that work if we send that to them?
Well, yeah, I mean, anything you send to them is just a
They
recommendation.
can discuss.
They,
Okay.
they could throw it out the window. They could say,
Right.
you know, whatever they want. They're just going to read your comments, read the minutes. They know your thoughts. I think they could easily understand that, you know, maybe there's not a clear-cut answer here.
Right.
Thankfully, you know, if I was in your position, and I've been on a planning commission before, actually, where at times I said to myself, I'm glad I don't have to make the decision. You know, city council does that. So, you know, up to you. Obviously, I would be comfortable. You know, I'd prefer that you make a recommendation. If you don't like the 30,000, whoever makes the motion, throw that in your motion. We don't want 30,000. You could say 0. There should be no size restriction. That's your prerogative right now. That's the position you're in.
So can they, I'm assuming, this is just probably exactly what you just said, they can come back and say, no, we'd like the 30,000. We're going to keep it at that. Okay.
Absolutely.
I like that they had to make the final decision. I'm just being honest. No, I'm kidding.
I
This
feel
is
like
a hard one. That's why it's a hard one.
it isn't. I feel like a lot of us just don't have
An answer.
enough information to make a clear-cut, highly educated decision. We're maybe lack enough experience in that realm to feel fully confident in much else. I think that we have a good starting point, though, to either begin here, you know, maybe recommend that it be adopted and have some further discussion as we have more applicants come in, and then maybe make some adjustments.
I think we could put that in as a condition.
Commissioner Kilgore, you're muted.
I know what I don't want. I just don't know how to get what I do want.
The alternatives is to table it.
Yeah, well, I don't think we need to, though. I mean, it's just more discussion, right? So I don't think we need to split it out.
I agree. I think we're in a good starting point. So that's my opinion.
You know, I think you've got, you know, if you were to make a motion on that, I think you got some, you know, at least some information on the other side of the table. D.R. Horton's in a 60,000 square foot building. Mr. Lindstrom made the comment that 60,000, you know, it was probably doable. You know, perhaps that's your baseline that you would make your recommendation on.
Yeah, the question though is, I don't know where they are. You know, it's not the size of the building, it's where they are in the city. Is it in the city center where the old town is, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, and yeah, as far as office warehouse goes, yeah, you're going to get another request here soon along Redwood Road for office warehouse. Obviously, when D.R. Horton was talking, they've got areas there that are slated for office warehouse also. So
the answer to Ken's question is no, they're not in the city center.
They're in an industrial area.
You answered your own question earlier, Ken, when you said, where is it that you see them, right? So
yeah, exactly. And so do we want them on Redwood Road, which is basically our city spine?
So this is the really hard part. Like, I don't mind them on parts of Redwood Road, right? If there's areas that can be, but my worry is that then we just start lining our transportation corridors with these. I forgot what Commissioner Wagstaff said, but he had a good turn. Like he's into all of this and building, and he had a good term, right? You're just throwing I don't know what you said, Commissioner Wagstaff, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're throwing up the cement wall, right? And I get that we have the ability to control what that ultimately looks like and hide the HVAC and hide those things. But when you talk about public welfare, I can guarantee, like, tell me how you feel when you drive down Redwood Road through all these other communities here in Salt Lake County. Like, I'm right off of Redwood right now, and you never see you can't tell when you cross from South Jordan to West Jordan to Taylorsville to West Valley City. It's just, and I don't want that for my city. And I want to be fair and equitable, but that's not what I want Saratoga Springs to look like in 20 years. And that's the hard part. And that's where Commissioner McConkey's comment comes in, because we're not the pros and I don't understand how to fix it. And that's what's frustrating. This system is set up beautifully because we're doing exactly what we should be doing as citizens of our community, right? We're providing a different perspective, and we have the professionals and the right people on the call through Director Stroud and his staff who do an awesome job. I don't want to discount any of that. So there's a great balance in the way the system's set up. I just, when I hit this wall and I can't figure out how to solve it, that's where the OCD Reed Ryan comes in. Like, I want to fix this and I don't know how.
Well, and your comment about going up and down Redwood Road, we already have some warehouse feel up on the north end. And so my personal feeling is that might be a great place for some of these things. And as we move further into city center, then having these kinds of businesses and buildings probably aren't going to serve the best needs visually and functionally for the city.
Well, you say that there's more up north, and it's true, and more could go. You say more could go there, but I live up north. That's where I live, right? So for me, I'm like, no, right? Like, I don't want them north because that's exactly, because there is a lot there already, but that's where I'm at. And so I am seeing that every single day, right? So I don't want any more north. I mean, Mountain View Corridor, yes, of course, right? Like, that's a given. Hopefully we can get that developed and we can get going right there. But, right? I mean, talking on behalf of everybody else who lives north of me, yeah, that's a little, we worry a little bit about that because it makes sense, right?
Well, can we do something like what we did with storage units and say they can't locate, or would we want them all to locate together? Maybe.
I think that's a lot more difficult because the storage units are a specific use.
Yeah.
Office warehouse has a whole range of uses that can go in there.
We could certainly, and I'm not suggesting this, just the thought is that include in the code that any warehouse uses would be set back a certain distance from the main arteries such as Redwood Road and so forth.
Yeah, but that's not what this code is about. What we're, so that's for a future discussion. So here's my thinking. I want option A for family. I want no change to the parking for medical, and keep it at 30,000 for warehouse. That's my thinking.
I'd make a motion, Ken.
Oh, okay.
I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Commissioner.
Let me get the page here. If I can figure this. Okay, so oh my gosh, I can't read anymore.
Let me.
Okay. Based upon the evidence and explanations received today, I move to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council for the proposed amendment to Title 19 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated April 22nd, 2021, with the additional conditions that the family option, the family definition uses option A, or we choose option 1 for the family definition, that we leave the office warehouse is a definition to we don't change the code for the office warehouse definition, and we do not change the code for the medical parking requirement.
Yeah, so just like Jim, in reality, you're only making two recommendations beyond what was you're specifying the family option one.
Okay.
You're specifying no change to parking. You're keeping the 30 as it's written.
Okay. Yes.
That's your motion.
Okay. So yes. So I'd like to clarify my motion by saying that I'd like to choose. Is it option A or is it option 1?
Option 1.
Okay. So I'd like to keep option. I'd like to propose that we keep option 1 as the family definition. We make no change to the parking and the office warehouse definitions.
So right now, we don't have an office warehouse definition. Are you saying we don't add those right now? We just leave those out right now?
I believe what he meant was the definitions to warehouse heavy and warehouse light.
Yeah.
Those are brand new definitions. Are you saying to leave them out right now?
No change to them.
No change. No change.
Oh, approve them as they're shown?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry for that. If I wasn't clear.
You might need to restate again there.
So there's no change. There's actually no changes. There's really no changes except just defining the family, right?
Meaning no changes to the recommendation or no changes to the city.
Oh, that's true. Because okay, all right, that makes sense. Okay, so I've got it clear in my mind now. So with the conditions that we choose option 1 for the family definition, we do not change the medical parking code, and that we accept the recommendation for the office warehouse.
And all other.
We have a motion
as proposed.
So just to clarify, it's not office warehouse, but it's warehouse heavy and warehouse light.
Heavy and warehouse light. Yeah. Right. Warehouse heavy and warehouse light. We accept the proposed changes.
We know where you're coming from, Ken.
I'll second
so we have a motion.
I'll second that.
From Commissioner Kilgore and a second from Commissioner McConkey. We'll go down through the list here. Start with me. Commissioner Cunningham, aye. Commissioner Kilgore.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner McConkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Breaking my heart, but I have to vote nay. Sorry.
And Commissioner Wagstaff.
Nay.
Okay. So we have 2 nays and 5 yays. So the motion passes.
That's how we like it. That's what we wanted.
Yep.
Okay. We have a mixed, well, it's still a positive recommendation, but we do have 2 negative votes.
Yep.
All right. We'll move on to the next item, which is approval of the minutes. Does anyone have any changes they'd like to submit on the minutes?
Chair Cunningham,
not,
Commissioner Ryan, I
yes.
don't see any changes, so I would be happy to make a motion at this time.
Go ahead, proceed.
I would like to motion that we approve the minutes from Thursday, March 25th, 2021 for the Saratoga Springs Planning Commission.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ryan. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Barton, second. Any question on the motion? All right, I'll start with Commissioner Ryan.
Aye, thank you.
Commissioner Wagstaff.
Aye.
Commissioner McConkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Barton.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Aye.
Commissioner Kilgore.
Aye.
And Commissioner Cunningham, aye. All right, well, on to commission comments. I just have one training. There's this question about well, actually I have 2. First one is training. Any more word on training? Director Stroud?
Still,
okay.
Had other things take precedence, but that's on my to-do list.
All right. The other thing that's coming up is the city council is returning to the chambers for starting in May. So I have signed a declaration that gets us through the first meeting in May. I would like to propose, or my thinking is we see how the city council's first meeting goes in May. And then when we meet the first time in May, we'll decide if we want to come back and meet meet as a group at the city council, if we are able to do that. I had asked Director Stroud to look, would there be restrictions in place that would prevent us from meeting still?
I'm not sure what the current standards are as far as numbers go. Obviously, if we're going back as council, 50 sticks in my mind.
Yeah, it's
okay.
50 or more right now is what it is. You got to mask up 50 or more.
So because we can't even meet more than, we never have more than 50, obviously, but it looks like yes. So it is possible. So Commissioner Cunningham, so right now the first meeting in May would still be on Zoom, correct? You'd still hold that? You want to see?
Yes, that's what
you want to see how the council,
how it works out for the city council.
Okay. I think we can.
I guess the other thing is if we have to do the 6 foot thing, that would be kind of with our size of group, that it would also be kind of a limiting factor as well, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure if there's still 6. I know there was issues last time they thought about going back, having the separation, but not having everybody on camera then at that point.
Okay.
Don't know if that's resolved or I believe that the 6 is still a standard there, I believe.
The other thing that I had thought about was a hybrid model. Some of us in there and some of us on Zoom. Now, wasn't there technical difficulties with that, trying that as well?
Possibly. Dave Johnson did all of the
okay.
AV stuff when he was here. But yeah, when he did that, because the council did that for a meeting of, I don't remember what it was, maybe it was the city council. The council did that and Dave had to run like 5 different programs to get everything to sync up, and there were still problems. It was logistically, it wasn't a good thing to try and do.
So that's not feasible. Okay,
No.
That's fine. I just want to know. That's all I have. And I think what I would like to do is have an agenda item, so we have a business item for that. And I'd like to take a vote on returning.
Okay.
I don't want to leave it. I know you guys that I could make that decision, but I would like to have the commission weigh in on it and just not do it unilaterally. Feelings on that from the rest of the commission?
Can I make a quick comment? I'm okay with that being an agenda item. We can discuss it.
Okay.
Well, it's commissioner comments. I wonder if maybe we can't go back, but I wonder if Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner Wagstaff could qualify their nay, just so there's in the minutes it shows and maybe it will already show itself because Commissioner Ryan and Wagstaff made comments previously, but I wonder if they could qualify their nay, even though we are passing on a forward recommendation, that those could be recorded as to why.
Yeah, no,
Yes,
I'm
they
happy
can
to
do
clarify. So my nay was only for the warehouse at 30,000 square feet. I would have passed everything else. I just feel like that's too small of a unit for a multi-use building, which is what has been discussed, a lot of our businesses and jobs. And so I don't see where 30,000 square feet hinders health, safety, or welfare of the city in any way, but I do see that it hurts our economic growth. So I don't see that 30,000 being the right approach, where we have other ways to, making them change the storefront or the facade, or just different ways of making buildings look more cosmetically pleasing, if that's our concern.
Sure, Ryan.
So same hinge point, but different direction on the 30,000 square feet. You drive down Old Mill Road there in Lehigh, and those are weird. That was mentioned from Sarah that those are 30,000 square foot buildings, and I'm not quite sure that that's how I want to approach our planning. So that's where I had to jump off the ship. And I think I made that pretty clear in a lot of my comments. I'm sitting here with the chill. Speaking of getting back together, I've got my second shot today. So I'm sitting here with the chills and a fever right now, like trying to get through this so I can go home and just go to bed. I got my shot at 8 a.m. and by 4 o'clock I was ready to go to bed. So I may have been a little more jumbled than typical fashion that I usually speak in this evening, but that's where I had to take my vote this evening. Hopefully that's clear.
Well, thanks for being a trooper and staying with us. I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments?
That might be one reason for us to continue meeting on Zoom for anyone who hasn't got their shot yet.
I had COVID back in the first part of February and I can't get it for 90 days. So I still got half a month or so to go.
I know, people forget that it's not about social distancing or wearing masks. It's about not getting sick. You know, that's
right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we'll talk about it at the next meeting, but I'm
yes,
in favor of taking this party back to in person. I think we've lost a lot over a year of not being able to see each other in person, and I'm very excited to be able to do that. So I'm all on board.
If we have no more commissioner comments, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over for the director's report.
Just general comments. We got commercial really kind of taking off on Redwood Road. I did have a little conversation this morning about, I can't name the businesses yet, but a couple more businesses that will be applying for site plan approval for the crossing phase 3. And so those coming on, those will be staff approval, as have the other site plans there. More activity on the Jared Osmond project, the Riverview you see there across from Costco. Things are, you hear about the high cost of construction and whatnot and materials. I don't think it's slowing Saratoga Springs down a whole lot. Maybe it's more residential. I don't know. I did see a guy with 3 2x4s in his truck the other day. I thought he was flaunting his wealth a bit, but it is what it is. So things are still moving. We will have our planner 1 that we hired. His name's David Rogers. He's coming out of Draper. He was a assistant planner in Draper. He will start Monday for us, and so we're excited to bring him on board. We're still going full bore. Nothing really stopping us.
Thanks. Do we have any need to go into a closed session this evening?
Commissioner Chair Cunningham, Ken, do you have anything for Planning Commission?
Just to mention, I know it's not specifically planning, but within the new community development department, we are focusing, of course, as much as we can on economic development. We do have a new economic development director coming on board next Thursday. His name is Doug Meldrum. He used to work for Lehigh City. So we're excited about that.
That's exciting news. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, I will adjourn this meeting and we'll stand adjourned until May 13th, our next meeting.
And just real quick, right now, our May 13th agenda looks like it's going to be fairly heavy. So plan accordingly. Have dinner ready for you in front of your chair and we'll move forward.
Sounds good. See you guys on the 13th.
Just give us plenty of time to prepare.
And one quick suggestion on meetings like this where we go long, we may consider like bio breaks. Just schedule that, 5 minutes, take a quick, my camera turned off. I'm not going to admit to anything, but there you go. And that might be a good idea.
I lost internet connection for a while. Yeah, sorry. I guess I should have taken that into consideration.
Okay, now everybody can break.
Mountain Dew bottle here.
Okay.
See you guys next week.
See you guys. Have a good one.